and welcome to another episode of Yolt Presents Joker's Trick.
We live in a society.
This is the real one, boys.
This is the real one.
Here.
We're about to go werewolf right now because this is
Or go wild.
the number one A1 nut boy Joker movie.
It's the reason for this podcast and my life, honestly.
Full disclosure, I thought when we started doing this podcast based on Joker cinema, we were going to start with Joker, and I've been led along for how many episodes now, watching all this Batman kids garbage.
Bullshit, yeah.
Now this is the movie for adults. I mean, we've had movies in the past where Joker is in the byline of the title, but this movie has Joker in the title.
Letters that are so big that they come out of the frame, basically. You know, like it can't fit his name.
Yes, because today we are talking about, of course, Todd Phillips's modern classic, Joker.
That's life, and all the people say.
Oh, we should also introduce ourselves. I can say definitively that I am Joke. Can you introduce me as Joke?
You're introducing yourself.
How about another joke, Troy? What do you get when you cross a mentally ill joke with a podcast that
Oh my God, am I Murray?
and treats him like trash?
This is your idea.
I'll tell you what you get. You get what you fucking deserve.
Gunshot sound effect.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Why would you bring a gun to a podcast? It's part of my act.
This is all part of my act.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not Batman. I'm 10, I think. I'm 10.
Oh, Jake's gonna stick his fingers in your mouth. Yeah.
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 Troy, you look a little unhappy. I'm just gonna put a smile on your face.
Troy, why is your butler such an asshole?
Hey, look, my dad just wants to help you clown garbage people by becoming your mayor.
Well, I am just someone that you think that I'm just gonna take it like a cute little boy, but I'm gonna go werewolf and go wild or some shit. Hello.
Was that the Oscar clip they played for Best Adapted Screenplay?
I thought it was the fridge scene.
One was actor and one was screenplay. I remember the Oscars were like, and excellence in Joker, where I go werewolf.
Pretty much like every clip that you grab from Joaquin in this, you just watch and you're like, oh my God, how embarrassing.
You know,
like,
I could buy Batman having a sidekick that's a little boy. I don't know if I can buy his arch enemy apparently also being a little boy.
he's like 40 years older than him.
Who's like
Yeah.
73?
Paul, you're here too. Who are you?
Oh, I'm. You're already Murray. What am I? I'm your social worker. Things are tense.
We cut your funding.
They cut my funding.
You can't give us meds, so this episode's gonna be off the rails.
Yeah, so we're going werewolf, boys. We're going wild on this one.
For the record, up until this very moment, I thought Paul actually was Mark Maron. Like he just had different
Oh,
names.
yeah.
I'm a little shocked to find out that he isn't Mark Maron.
We don't, the fact that he's like a black woman is kind of shocking, but it makes sense.
No, it tracks. It tracks.
It makes sense to me.
So, Jake, tell us about the greatest. I mean, this is yet another Joker movie that's defined a generation.
Did you know this was the first movie ever made for adults?
It's the first time that a movie treated me seriously and that validated all the action figures I have as a 30-year-old in my studio apartment.
Yes.
So let's talk about Senor Joker. But we need to talk about the Joker at the head of all of this.
Martin Scorsese.
Well, not exactly. It's he's a little bit funnier than Martin Scorsese. Man by the name of Todd Phillips.
I just love bad guys.
Premier comedy director.
The king of the frat boy comedy.
I'll admit, I watched the first Hangover. It still gets a laugh out of me.
He also made a movie called War Dogs, which implies that war might involve money and is also bad.
Damn!
Whoa.
Watch out, Adam McKay. Someone exactly like you is
So
also
yeah, this
working.
trend of like goofy comedy directors from the 2000s turned out tours. It's gone too far.
Todd Phillips is one of those filmmakers who's like came out of the comedy scene, but his earlier movies are a tinged more twisted. You know, there's scenes of murder in Starsky and Hutch played for laughs. There's a point where
Damn.
Ben Stiller, who plays Starsky, shoots a pony because he thinks that a garage is filled with drugs. He's like, I'm going to prove to you. And he's dressed like a clown. Or no, he's dressed like a mime. And during the scene, they're miming to send in the clowns.
Oh my god.
No, but in this scene, he shoots a garage that he thinks is filled with cocaine, Vince Vaughn's garage. But it turns out there's a pony inside for Vince Vaughn's daughter who's celebrating her bar mitzvah. And the horse dies. And it's played as a joke. So there's a tinge of that early on.
There's a little misanthropy.
Yeah, no. And then even in the first Hangover, you know, you have people ripping out their own teeth and it's played for laughs. But it truly doesn't start coming into form until Hangovers Part 2 and 3. Hangover Part 2 is basically a reaction to the first one, going like, you like this shit? Well, now they're in Bangkok and everything is more fucked up and violent. Mr. Chow is going to die of a cocaine overdose 15 minutes
It's not
into the
even
movie.
a comedy.
And then a monkey's gonna be eating his penis.
That it is like a Pasolini movie. It's just like fucked up things happening.
Yeah, and then the third one takes it an even step further, and it's just like, this is not a comedy anymore. We're gonna have one of the characters just get shot in the head by John Goodman, and then you're gonna have like Mr. Chow killing chickens on screen, and there's not gonna be any jokes related to it.
Okay, there's an important thing that often gets left out of the Todd Phillips story. Apparently, he directed half of Borat
Oh,
until the rodeo scene where Sacha Baron Cohen caused a riot, and then Todd Phillips walked off Borat because he couldn't handle working with Sacha Baron Cohen anymore.
Is that true?
really?
Is that TV tropes? I'm gonna fact check
No,
this.
it's not on TV Tropes. It's on Wikipedia. It's like
Okay,
a
so
re-
then it's true. Damn.
Yeah.
Fuck. Todd Phillips directed one of my favorite movies. This is no good. This is not
And this
good
is
at
the
all.
guy who made the Gigi Allen fucking documentary. That's not very Joker of him to walk off that set.
I know. It's not very punk rock.
Luckily, he improves on that. He rectifies it by making Joker the most controversial modern classic.
What was War Dogs?
War Dogs? I didn't even see War Dogs.
Well, that was one of those movies that we're not sure if it was real because no one saw
I
it.
think I saw like 20 minutes of it on TV once, and I mean, I never saw the Hangover sequels, but even the first one, people were like, I remember the discussion at the time being like, well, this is a little edgier, and also like, even the first one doesn't totally feel like studio comedies of the 2000s people have been used to. People were like, it looks so gritty. And then I guess they eventually evolve into more of a crime saga. And then War Dogs is version 1.5 of, you know, can I go full crime saga?
Well, didn't it come out the same year as that American Made movie with Tom Cruise? Like, I just remember Hollywood making all these big budget movies
That
about
no
like,
one saw.
yeah,
Like,
no one wanted to see these movies.
Who was it? Like fucking Plato, or who said like if a tree falls but no one sees it, or did it fall? Like, were these movies even made? It's like,
And that's when Hollywood stopped making movies for adults.
It seemed
Yes.
like, well, yes, because obviously, I mean, the big thing with all these comedy directors becoming serious is that comedy was canceled, obviously, in the mid 2010s. But the other thing is that it is true that it seems like somewhere in that period, people were like, the people, they don't want to see war movies, but maybe they want to see like Lord of War. They want to see like big actors ship arms to people, and nobody showed up. You know?
yes, but War of Dogs, or
War of Dogs.
whatever it's called, the War of the Dogs. It is important to our discussion because that is the movie that, because it made $17 fucking at the box office, that became the inception dream of this movie. Because Todd Phillips has very openly said, like, he has literally said these words: I need to make a movie that's a character study, because that's what I'm gonna do. But what's a character study that I can make that makes $1 billion? Like, how can I trick people, basically? Which is very Joker of him to do.
I have never really thought about doing a comic book movie. It wasn't like, oh, I want to make a Joker movie. It was really came from like, how do you make a great character study and get people to want to see it?
I thought, this is just so bold.
Who is one person that we could make a movie about that does everything that I want to do in a movie because I can't do comedy anymore? I guess I'll do Joker.
But because that was the thing, this was the period of time where studios would greenlight anything with a superhero in it.
Especially Warner Brothers was just like throwing everything. Even in the DCU, it's like so many desperate visions and styles.
Well, here's the thing: is that it was also post Deadpool and post Logan, so.
Right.
That was the other key thing, because it was not just like superhero movies, because superhero movies means it has to be a 4-quadrant PG-13 movie that appeals to everybody. It wasn't proven yet that you could make a successful superhero related movie that was aimed at more of an adult audience.
Yeah.
I mean, Deadpool is, it's R-rated, but it appeals to teens because it has that naughty teenage sense of humor. But then you got Logan, which is James Mangold, doing his riff on like a Cormac McCarthy or The Last of Us and putting Wolverine in that. That actually made money. And so now with those two movies, you could walk into a studio and go like, hey, I'm going to make this dark, depressing drama about Joker, and Warner Brothers will scratch their chin and go like, interesting, here's $60 million to do it. And I would like to posit that this movie, you might have caught this, but it is very similar to a very popular movie that was nominated for a bunch of Oscars in 1976.
Rocky?
Yes, actually Rocky.
Oh yeah.
These are both movies that are underdog stories that...
Wait, are we actually... Oh.
The title character... The title of the movie, which is the title of the main character, is displayed in big blocky text.
No, he's
at the
right.
beginning.
Joker is Rocky.
And what is the signifying thing of both characters' transformations into what they eventually become? A flight of stairs.
A man walks upstairs. They're the same movie.
They're the same movie. These are both underdogs that are misunderstood by society, but they are given the chance to become something bigger.
You are wise and based and right.
Okay, much
he's
like how
correct.
the Academy was scared of Taxi Driver, so they had to give the Oscar to Rocky. The Academy was scared of Joker, so they had to give the Oscar to Parasite.
Which is just Korean Joker, let's be honest. This trend that I think it's still fucking going on. What if we do Cormac McCarthy with Wolverine? What if we do Taxi Driver with the Joker?
It's Rocky. Hey, excuse you.
Sorry,
It's
Rocky with the Joker. I've said a lot of times in this podcast, we are living in hell. This is part of hell, right? It's just like audiences can consume like anything slightly like adult without a fucking like comic book character in it.
That was a lot of the hand wringing at the time, I remember.
Yeah.
When this movie came out, the fucking world was in flames.
Oh my God.
Like, it was ridiculous. Like,
Okay, wait, I want to point out one more thing that I think is interesting. Why Todd Phillips could get away with doing this is because superhero movies were super successful. Wonder Woman was making money. Aquaman was making money. Shazam made money, except for 3 characters. Superman, Batman, and the Joker had all been like driven off a cliff and into the ocean. So DC's most profitable characters were ripe for the picking.
Well, yeah, and I think also at that, they had started in just a few years earlier, as we discussed with, Suicide Squad. It was like, oh, Marvel's making like these fun teen movies. What if we made really dark and depressing teen movies? And then at this point, their cinematic universe, they were trying to abort it to some degree. Marvel was doing their Endgame, and Todd Phillips comes in and is like, what if our identity is it's not a cinematic universe anymore, and you just let me make these alt version movies or this will be the first of that.
The DC Black label, which they ended up not doing.
Yeah, and now it's just like, okay, there's the DC universe, and then there's the Todd Phillips' Joker, and then there's the Matt Reeves Batman. None of them are related. Please keep this in track in your mind as you give us all your money.
No, I will argue that there are hints that this Joker is an alternate version of Ben Affleck's origin and Batman
Is it
v
because
Superman.
of the Excalibur poster?
It's because of the Excalibur poster and the fact that both Batman had their parents shot in 1981, and that the guy who shoots the parents is wearing the same brown jacket that Joe Chill is wearing in Batman v Superman.
And also his name is A. Fleck.
Exactly.
Jeffrey D. Morgan looks nothing like the guy from The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, and George Clooney doesn't look like Michael Keaton.
That's true, but
Does anyone remember when they announced this movie and they were like, this is not related to the DCU, and actually it's gonna be directed by Hangover guy and produced by Martin Scorsese and starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and we were all just like confused.
I was like, ooh, Scorsese. All right, I'll give it a shot. It makes sense. It was inevitable. The Joker had at this point become on par with Batman as a character. Harley Quinn was getting her own movie.
Have you guys seen the Hollywood Directors Roundtable where it's like Scorsese and Todd Phillips are there? And they're asking Scorsese, like, why did he drop out of Joker? And he's, like, trying to get around, like, saying he thought the screenplay was bad, like, in like, a lot of different words.
What was the quote? I think Martin Scorsese said, he's like, I love the Arthur Fleck character. Such a great character. Such an interesting, multifaceted story. I can't get behind the idea of him becoming Joker at the end because I don't like Joker.
For me, ultimately, I don't know if I make the, the next step, which is to this character developing into a comic book character. Develops into an abstraction. That doesn't mean it's bad art. It could be, but it's not for me. You follow?
So you need, I think he said you want a director who really would have his heart in that ending of him becoming Joker, but then Todd Phillips will say, oh, he's not the Joker.
yeah, no.
So
He's an idea.
The guy that ended up replacing Marty as the celebrity producer was another genius filmmaker auteur, Bradley Cooper.
He's reining it in.
I'm reining it in.
Maestro himself.
How could this even like happen? Like how could they
You're describing it like a tragedy. Like, how could they let this happen?
how could they even get Martin Scorsese to pick up the phone from DC Comics?
they needed a New York producer, and he lives in New York.
That's pretty much it.
But like, no, you have to talk about like the fact that the Hangover movies were unbelievably successful, and an
Yes.
enormous amount of those profits went to Todd Phillips, and he made him one of the most powerful directors that Warner Brothers had a contract with, on almost on the level of Nolan in the 2010s, in
Yeah.
terms of the amount of like influence that he had. And by extension, Bradley Cooper then had that influence. And Bradley Cooper did American Sniper, which made him best friends with all of the top auteurs.
Yeah, so we went from like the world's greatest living filmmaker, you know, backing this and then backing out because going like, wait a minute, this is a stupid idea, to then like we have mustachioed maestro saying shit like it was such a genius, bold thing to like grab the most two-dimensional villain and making him three-dimensional.
It's a wonderful exploration to take probably the most famous two-dimensional villain to say, okay, what happens if we humanize this person? I thought, this is just so bold.
It's like, what the fuck are you, like, the Joker has an Oscar already. Like, what? He's not Dick Dastardly. You know, making a three-dimensional character study of Dick Dastardly would be bold. Yeah, that would be bold.
That'd be good.
I want to see the Mishima version of Dick Dastardly.
He commits seppuku at the end with Muttley in the background.
Muttley and him take over
The Japanese palace.
Yeah.
And that's how Muttley goes to hell. It's a prequel to Scoob.
Yeah.
Yes. Muttley went to hell for an armed coup of the Japanese army that was doomed to failure. Yes, but as Todd Phillips likes to say, it's not bringing Joaquin Phoenix into the DC universe. It's bringing the DC universe into the Joaquin Phoenix verse. So this was the other big power player.
Yeah, speaking of which, we got to talk about the Joker himself, Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquinix. So Joaquinix at this point, I'm like, the master, you were never really here. I'm like, this is maybe the greatest actor working right now, and he's perfect for the Joker. You said, I don't know what to say after that. It didn't pan out quite the way I expected.
It took a lot of debate from Joaquin Phoenix. He had turned down Doctor Strange because he didn't want a multi-picture deal. He was the first choice for that.
That's right.
And then he was like, I want to do a character study and I'm open to doing something in DC Comics. But he's like, the Joker, he's been done 50 times. What are you going to do with the Joker?
And he already did a Joker-ish character with Paul Thomas Anderson, and it was great.
Are we talking about the Master or are we talking about Inherent Vice?
Both.
Both.
Particularly the Master, yeah.
Is the Master really a Joker? He's just...
I mean, he's a freak horn dog that's very skinny and has long hair.
Is that the Joker?
That's this Joker.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, this also ties, I think this movie, obviously Jared Leto, well, we'll get to Jared Leto in a second because he was the only one who didn't want this movie to happen. But
I can't imagine why.
But his take on the Joker, as annoying and awful and garbage as it is, it still is like a fun take on the Joker. This movie was the first, I feel, truly post-Nolan, post-Ledger. The Joker is a hallowed cultural institution. We have to take him seriously and what he says about society.
Well, I mean, the whole premise is this is the movie that is all about the Joker, this character that has already gotten an Oscar win.
Yes.
And he is the protagonist. And everybody knew that as soon as it was announced. And we're like, oh my God,
Yes.
what are they going to do?
The character that is good because his backstory is ambiguous, we're going to give him an entire backstory movie. Brilliant.
And it won't be the Killing Joke. We're making a whole new backstory for him.
But it's actually just the Killing Joke.
It's actually just the Killing Joke that just goes on for way longer. But Jared Leto, who played the Joker in a movie at about the same time this was greenlit, was so mad at Warner Brothers that he tried to talk to like his music label to get the movie killed. Because he's like, they didn't support my Joker. And it's alleged he walked away from CAA because they didn't fight for his Joker. They allowed Joaquin Phoenix to do another Joker.
But it's worth mentioning, I mean, especially as we've seen in the year of our Lord 2024, which we are currently in, Joaquin is obviously one of our great actors. Seems like he's somebody that's kind of open to anything. Like he's attached himself to many different projects, but you see like historically, like most of his collaborators and himself have talked about, like he'll sign on to things. And then he is a very spur of the moment actor. He's a very instinctual actor, and he doesn't like anything to perhaps Joker-esque, you could say. The rules of society, the rules of a screenplay that's been set in stone, right?
The rules of making movies.
Right. But, in recent times, this has come up about the making of the PTA movies, the making of Napoleon, the making of
Beau's Afraid?
Joker, the making of Beau is Afraid, is that, he starts to doubt himself in pre-production and wants to change the script or retool things and feel like he can trust the director that he's working with.
Here's the thing is like, this is the example of when you give Joaquin too much power because your script, I'm going to go out on a limb here, is that the original version of this movie in script form was probably lacking. As you can see in the finished result.
Whoa, bold words.
They leaked the earliest version of the draft online, so you can see for yourself, allegedly.
Yes, and so a lot of it is just like the reverence of having Joaquin Phoenix and being able to use his star power to sell your movie to the dumbasses at the Venice Film Festival. And so, like, you're just giving him, like, a free reign to go, like, all right, this is supposed to happen. And then Joaquin just goes, like, no. I'm just going to stuff myself in a fridge. Or I'm just going to dance. Or I'm just going to do whatever. And then you tailor the movie around Joaquin Phoenix's acting instincts instead of guiding the performance.
You're shooting bullshit. You're just shooting whatever he does and with no direction.
Have you guys ever seen the vanity project he made of Rooney Mara, Mary Magdalene, where he's Jesus?
Oh no, I stayed away from that
There's
shit.
some peak Joaquin Phoenix acting choices. Everyone on the mountain is like, you gotta treat people better. What are you all?
If you saw me on the sidewalk, you would just walk right over me.
But you could say, I mean, really, he's like a more, extreme version of like a lot of stars where they withhold. I mean, it's the same reason certain, A-listers work with the same directors over and over and over again that are not the top directors, but they're people that they trust. Joaquin doesn't do that. He goes and takes gambles with Todd Phillips and Ari Aster or whoever, and then there are these stories about like he's afraid, and then he eventually either gives himself over to them or doesn't. And if he does, then he's capable of anything, and as we see in this film, because he really does everything.
Well, when we watched the movie a couple months ago together, Paul, you said a very eloquent phrase.
Wait, you guys watched it multiple times in the past year?
Well, yeah, it's our favorite movie.
We had to study it to make our trailer, which is a perfectly faithful recreation of
It
its
actually
moments.
is. and Paul called it something like very perfectly put, I would say, when we watched the behind the scenes, which he said, this is quietly damning because they show you, to brag, the fact that like when Joaquin Phoenix is doing his like entrance through the curtain, he's like doing it in 50 different takes and they're all completely different from each other, and they're like, he's just such a genius, but you're watching it and just like no one was directing him. Like this has no vision.
Well, Todd Phillips is an improv director.
Well, that's true. But it's not just their different versions of the scene. These are completely different tones where he is genuinely like having a great time to when he's like, I'm gonna kill everybody.
Like the motivations are wildly different and not coherent.
We'll talk about it more in the movie, but like it's such a like a Frankenstein performance kind of thing where it's like in that interview scene he goes in the span of a second from like confident Joker-ish to like literally crying and his voice is cracking, because they probably like splice two different takes.
Because he's crazy.
Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the guiding force of it. Is just like what Todd Phillips thinks is crazy.
Yeah.
Or no. Let's do the generous filmmaking term that he says. Unpredictable.
Yes, unpredictable.
We need to make it unpredictable.
Mentally ill loner. Climbing on top of your refrigerator is very unpredictable. I was not expecting that. That did
Some
surprise
people
me.
say insane, but Todd Phillips is like, no. It's unpredictable. I'm just showing the unpredictability of the Joker.
Because in New York, I mean Gotham City, it's hot and people want to be cool, but they don't climb into their refrigerators. That's society, Joker find a way around it.
So, I mean, I guess we could talk about the reaction, or we could just start getting into the plot.
No, well, we have to talk about the reaction. It was insane.
Well, it is funny because it was before it came out, because everyone was convinced that releasing a Joker movie during the Trump era was gonna make every white boy who can't get a date go werewolf.
Which never made sense to me, because I'm like, all right, let's take a step back here. Say you are hypothetically a Joker man, an incel.
As we all are, of course.
Let's imagine.
Let's imagine here. Let's get into the perspective of a Joker.
Assume away.
So here's the thing. If this movie's coming out that represents your ideology, I would think that you would want as many people to watch it as possible. I wouldn't think that you would go into a theater and shoot everyone in the theater to make it so that like no one wants to see your movie at that point.
Yes.
So the whole notion of people going werewolf and wild in a screening of the Joker never quite added up to me. Though I do have to say that when I saw it, I started to get a little worried though.
It was tense. I was there.
Yeah,
I was there.
Yeah, so Jan and I went to see this at the Chinese theater, and there was a guy in front of us who was clapping throughout the movie, like really into
at the most
Joker.
like disturbing parts, like he shoots Merv Franklin and he claps.
Yes, he like got up and shouted, "Yeah!" And finally, Jan just goes like, "Shh." like to tell him to shut the fuck up. And we were with our composer of the podcast, Mikey. And at the end of the movie, this guy approaches Mikey and goes like, hey, did you tell me to shut the fuck up?
And I ran away. I ran away to the
Yeah,
bathroom.
Jen leaves us behind. I'm with Mikey, with the scary man who's applauding the murder of Robert De Niro in the movie. And he's confronting Mikey about whether or not he told him to shut the fuck up. And Mikey just replies, no. And then the guy gives him a hard look and then just goes like, okay, and walks away. And that was the one time where I was like, maybe the outlets have a point. But honestly, I don't.
A lot of it was a misunderstanding of the 2012 theater shooting, which through telephone had become, this guy shot up a Batman movie because he was obsessed with the Joker.
But he wasn't.
Wasn't it at all, and it didn't even make sense.
Because they're like, he had painted hair. Obviously, he's the Joker.
But it was red hair.
He was red hair. The Joker is green hair.
The Joker's not
What are
even
you
mentioned
talking
in The
about?
Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the Joker.
Yeah, but I mean, it is some kind of costume, which is unusual. I'm not saying he was.
Well, it was
like,
tactical gear. It wasn't even really a costume.
but he is wearing a clown wig, right?
No, he wasn't wearing a clown wig. He had dyed his hair orange red, and he was wearing a tear gas mask because he threw gas in the theater.
Right.
Paul has been watching too much MSNBC. I'm afraid.
But I do think it is a little unusual, the painted hair, but I think logically, if you're thinking about it, it's not like, for example, like, I don't think there are more mass shootings at like heavy metal concerts than at like other kinds of concerts, right? But the intention of making a movie about the Joker, where the second it was announced, we all understood that this would be a more or less sympathetic portrayal of the Joker, and he was going to go around doing mass shootings. And this is within a decade after there had been a mass shooting.
He shoots one Robert De Niro.
Wait, yeah, the Joker doesn't do mass shootings? What are you talking about?
He shoots people with gas, or he strips down an old man. That's all he does.
Wait, is Paul doing anti-Joker speech? Get the
Yeah,
fuck
wait,
out.
wait,
Get
wait,
out of
wait,
here. What
Paul,
the
Paul,
you
you
make
Joker
a list.
Second they announce it, it's a very obvious provocation, right?
Is it?
Well, yes.
Yes.
Well, it is a
What?
provocation.
What do you mean by provocation? Like, so a Joker movie is going to provoke people to do something,
It's
but
not
then
a
it happens.
provocation for the people perpetrating this. It's a provocation for people who are afraid of this.
It is a provocation. It's a provocation to me specifically because this fucking movie won the Golden Lion in Venice, and that fucking like set me off.
Do you remember the bet that I had with you, Jan, about
Yes, you told me like a few days before. You said if Joker wins the Golden Lion, I will do a Joker laugh publicly, and I said that's never gonna happen. And then we were walking, and I was like, "Oh no!"
we were walking around in downtown LA, and Jan shows me his phone, just like, Jake, I have some news for you. And he shows me the news article that Joker has won the Golden Lion, and I had to be true to my word. I'm a man of my word.
This is the interesting thing about the critical reception the Joker leading up to watching the movie is we were hearing two things. One, this is the most dangerous movie ever made. And the other, it's a somewhat incompetent, lesser riff on better movies that a lot of people really enjoy.
And also, it's a masterpiece.
yeah,
The controversy levels was you'd think like this was the apocalypse now of our generation,
Right.
And then we watched it, and we were like, eh.
And then it's a movie that every time you watch it, it just gets more and
It
more.
gets
You
worse.
start to realize how hollow it is.
it's kind of a kiddie pool movie, I think, at the end of the day. We'll get into it, but like, yeah, it looks deep, but you get in it super shallow.
Exactly. No, that's a good way to put it.
But what I'm saying is, like, it is so entirely about the controversy of his existence and the provocation of, you know, trying to stir people up. I'm not saying he tried to get people to bring guns to the theater, but there was a feeling in the air, and it seemed to even bleed over into the marketing. We can talk about this.
Oh no, I 100% think that Warner Brothers caught wind of, I don't think it was supposed to get as big as it got, because it got to the point where like everyone was predicting that somebody would die in a Joker
Like
screening.
the FBI had to monitor all screenings of the movie. It was a little out of control.
It was a completely manufactured controversy by media and also the studio. Like, you know, like it was a whole retroactive thing that got some people genuinely, but it's so manufactured, like obviously because now a new Joker movie's coming out and no one gives a shit. Like no one's scared. Like
not even the Venice Film Festival.
No,
but no, it was the specific pressure of the time. It was the Trump era, so I think a lot of people thought that like the bad guy had won in real life. So why are we making movies about bad guys? Why isn't he a bear from Peru? I think that added to a lot of people's fears. A Warner Brothers executive said in the pitch, it's like, you understand we sell pajamas of the Joker at Target, correct? So like, I don't know if the executives wanted it, but obviously Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix had a vision, and that vision was to make the exact same kind of movie that got made 45 years before it.
Yes, Rocky.
Which, much like Joker, Taxi Driver, Rocky, studios didn't like it at the time, and people saw it as a prophet. Well, okay, Taxi Driver actually did inspire a very high-profile shooting.
Stops dead on his tracks when he starts giving the reason to Paul.
I'm like, well, actually, hold on. All right, we were right to be scared.
But that was like 4 years after the fact. Nobody shot up a theater of Taxi Driver when it was in general release in 1976.
He waited.
Only someone attempted to assassinate the president 4 years later. You know,
and also it's like the Last Temptation of Christ.
That's a very similar situation.
Someone attacked a theater because it's Jesus.
Yes.
The Joker, despite what we think,
well, he is kind of Jesus.
Well, yeah, in a way.
But the thing is that it pleased the fans, which is another facet of the response that is interesting, because you have certain asshole red backgrounded YouTubers who bemoan artistic
anonymous
art house movies and go like, and derides them as tour de forces or
this is bullshit. Why would anyone watch this?
Artsy-fartsy bullshit. But as soon as you replace one of those characters with Joker,
it's the best movie of the year.
Yeah, like the 10 out of 10 movie. So you have this dichotomy of like people who hate the intelligentsia, but they love comic book movies. And because this is a way for their comic book childhood heroes to become talked about by the intelligentsia, then they just graft their personalities onto it.
That's the provocation.
Yes. I have a point to make, but I just want to say how funny it is that we're talking about Joker and we're like, the dichotomy of hating the intelligentsia.
Well, this is his greatest trick.
Yeah, this is.
Before we move too far from The Last Temptation of Christ, I do want to point out that that's what's interesting about this movie and Last Temptation is everyone's like, this movie's going to root for the Joker. This movie's going to show Jesus being tempted. And at the end of both movies, they kind of reassert what you expected going in, right? Jesus dies to be God's only son, and Joker created Batman, who's the real hero and who the movie is actually about at the end.
And don't worry, the Joker is apprehended for now.
Yes, they're both brought to justice. Joker and Jesus are both
Joker
brought to
and Jesus have faced punishment for their crimes.
So shall we talk about the Joker Jesus movie?
Yes.
Let's talk about Joker.
So Joker clock. It might be our best ever.
Yeah.
First shot.
First shot, baby.
Do you have the time code, Paul?
Well, unfortunately, my HBO Max stream had an ad for the penguin in front of it, so I couldn't be precise. Yeah, so it might be the first 30 seconds, depending on how long that ad was. Obviously, we get vintage Warner Brothers because it's very vintage.
It's retro.
No DC logo because this is alt label or something.
Because this isn't a comic book movie. This is a dark character study about Arthur Fleck.
I thought, this is just so bold.
It's a weird public domain movie about the Joker that Warner Brothers produced with $60 million.
It's like the Steamboat Willie horror movie, or what
It
is
is.
Blood
It
and
kind
Honey.
of
Well, it's
is.
like our boss at Nubula, William Sage Patrick's. He got famous by doing these videos that were like, what if X-Men was directed by Wes Anderson and shit? And he said it himself. These feels like one of his skits, and he said it as in derogatory terms.
Yeah.
And you agree with him.
Yeah, because he's my boss. He's giving me all my money.
You agree with your roommate and your boss, but right off the bat, wordless, poetic, we get this character, Arthur. He does a smile, he does a frown. Happy clown, sad clown. But even when he smiles, there's a tear.
So, okay, problem number one, he's way too fucked up from the first scene.
He's Joker.
There's no way to go from here. Like, he's already crying.
Well, you've already communicated so much. Like, this opening scene, I think, is fine on its own. But when you put it at the beginning of two other scenes that come within the first 4 minutes of this movie,
Every scene is like this.
it becomes overkill.
He's never been happy.
One day in his life. And actually, one of the kids that beats him up says, this guy's weak. He can't do nothing. So, just in case you were confused as to who Arthur Fleck was at the start of this movie, there you go, by bully child number one.
And also, like, yeah, the overkill is a great word because also, like, when we were watching the behind the scenes, it's like, they're shooting, like, a dirty street in the Bronx. It already looks kind of messed up. But then, like, you see them CGI overlaying, like, even more gianter buildings, even more graffiti, even more trash.
Yes.
And it's like every single frame is like, there's always, like, a flickering light, piles of garbage, a ridiculous amount of graffiti to the point of parody.
They worked so hard to recreate 1981 New York to the great effect that it does not feel at all like 1981 New York. Like,
Yes,
you could have just walked outside in LA and shot. Like, I don't know. This movie does not feel like an 80s set thing, which is impressive considering how much crap was set during the 1980s when they made this movie.
Right. And also, on top of this, we did say that it's wordless in the beginning. That is not necessarily true because on the radio, we hear all the stuff about the garbage strike.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said in the beginning, it's tying how the city feels with how Arthur feels.
And the garbage being left out is a famous thing that happened during the production of Taxi Driver and is part of the film.
It also just happens in the city of New York. They will just leave their garbage out on the street for the rent.
Well, yeah, that is true. I'll get a point to Todd Phillips, but I will say, like, another horrible problem that I noticed even the first time, at least these first, like, 20 minutes, it's the same fucking point, the same fucking exposition over and over again. It's like, we hear through the radio, the city's fucked up. We go into the psychiatrist's office, the city's fucked up. We walk with him toward his house, it's all fucked up. It's like, we've seen it.
And just to underline how fucked up it is, this is on location in New York. We've seen Gotham as New York. We've seen Gotham as Chicago.
Yeah.
We've seen Gotham as like Edinburgh, I think, in like
Vancouver.
the Batman.
Yeah.
We've seen it as Vancouver. This is the film that dares to show us Newark and Jersey City as Gotham.
Yeah.
which is a little tougher for Arthur.
It's so real. My other big problem that's introduced in this first scene, and it's the core. So they're making Taxi Driver, right?
No, it's Rocky.
They're making Rocky. And Rocky works as a taxi driver in 1976 New York. And he works in this rundown taxi driver thing, and he has all these taxi driver friends.
Yes, now there's a clown agency.
Yeah, so Todd Phillips does a clown agency, which I don't think is a real thing, and it works just like a taxi driver company.
It's such a fucking forced screenplay. It's like, there's so many things that you're like, what? Like,
This is like where it feels like a senior college student writing their thesis,
Yes.
and they're
Yeah,
just
for sure.
making shit up.
Why would a store that's going out of business hire a clown to spin a sign when they could just get one of the teenagers who stole that sign to do it for like 12, no, it's the 80s, $6.
Not to mention is that that the store calls Joker's boss, Raphael from the Ninja Turtles movie, and he wants his sign back, and that if he doesn't return the sign, he has to pay for it.
Never even returned his sign.
Because I got jumped.
For a sign. It's bullshit. If you don't return the sign, I gotta take it out of your paycheck.
Where did they come up with this stuff?
When we watch it to the Chinese theater and it's that first scene, Jake just turns to me and he just goes like, meanwhile at the clown agency, and I'm like, yeah, what the fuck?
They like have beats. They have like assignments that they're all clowns in
It's
this
like,
horrible
okay,
city.
you do children's birthday party, you do the last day of this record store, and you go to the cancer hospital.
Yeah, and again, like, it would be fine. This would be a plot point that's a little wacky and forced, but it would be fine if the movie wasn't like every single second just like begging you to take it seriously with everything,
Yes.
right? With the production design, the lighting, the music, everything.
When I saw this in the theater, it was a lot. This first scene where I'm like, okay, they're going for a taxi driver thing. Let's see how they handle this. And he's just immediately getting kicked by children and sobbing on the ground as the heaviest cellos you've ever heard are swooning.
Yes. Puerto Rican children too.
Like I said, it's like the beginning of Rocky, where Rocky
Yes.
gets called a bum after his fight with Spider Rico.
Right, where Rocky gets jumped by middle school age children.
Exactly,
and
it's very
cries in a
similar.
puddle.
A genuine similarity to Rocky that might evoke like some of the 70s stuff is that weird, it's very weird, but like almost there's a lot of like antagonists towards Arthur, starting with this first scene with the kids, and then also the therapist and the lady at the bus. They're all people of color. And I'm like, this is a weird choice. Like, in the ways that...
But they go out of their way to make sure the first people he shoots are the Wall Street guys, so it's definitely not political. He says he's not political, Jan.
Do I look like the kind of clown that could start a movement?
Oh, right,
It's
right.
interesting how this movie tackles race, because I see what you're saying, but obviously the great criticism of movies in the past was they would show lower income characters and they would all be like super white, which in a big city, it would be more diverse and there would be more people. So this is interesting because it is riffing on Taxi Driver, which is a movie about a racist. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing is the whole point is, and again, the real reason, like white incels don't have a problem with the Joker. They have a problem with the fact that they're Nazis. So like what motivates them to be creepy villains in real life is being a Nazi, but because the Joker can't be a Nazi, he's canonically not a Nazi, in fact, what do you do to show, like, he's not racist, he's not misogynist? Is he misogynist?
I'm not saying that the character is racist in this. I'm just saying, like, the movie has this, like, odd thing that I notice more and more where it's just, like, there's so many people in this that is just like, shut the fuck up, Arthur, that is just like black woman, you know? Like,
yeah, in the beginning it's like that, but you come to realize that it's everybody, but it's not like the benign, like, New York, like, I don't give a shit about you. It is like people like actively going like, I fucking hate your guts, Arthur Fleck. Fuck you, you idiot. I'm going to beat you up. Thomas Fleck's going to punch you in the face in a bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, like,
it's like, when even Alfred is an asshole.
it is so desperate to just communicate the point that Arthur Fleck is put upon.
That everyone drove him to this.
So that you're just like, I get why he gets mad, but it doesn't take the time to really get into, I get it. He has mental illness, which, okay. And then I guess everyone's an asshole to him, but what is really motivating for him? And good point that you say about Taxi Driver. In Taxi Driver, it's not, I'm a racist, and that you just see through character and behavior the motivational factors as to what makes Travis Bickle end up taking arms against either Palantine or Harvey Keitel's
and also the digs at Taxi Driver, I mean Rocky, that push Rocky over the edge
to beat up Apollo Creed.
It's not like people are just punching me in the face 24/7. It's like subtle things, like the stuff that he hears in the back of his taxi and all the trash he sees in the street, and it's just like a like a constant, like little things that mount up every day until it explodes. It's not just like, first 5 minutes, some Puerto Rican kids are jumping me and like calling me weak. Like.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the fundamental thing of like you're trying to take this movie, Taxi Driver, that's about this like extremely paranoid, bigoted guy, and then you're like, well, we don't want to quite get into that. We want to make it more about like he's a bold like truth teller and like fighting for the working class or something.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing with this movie, right? Is like Joker has always been a criminal. Like when David Ayer's like, what is Joker? He's a criminal. This is the movie that watched The Dark Knight and went, well, maybe the Joker's a philosopher. So this is where you get like Joker is a symbol of the lower classes, which is something I've never really agreed with because he's always wearing a suit and he has a lot of money to make gadgets and henchmen.
During the Hong Kong protests and like even the 2020 protests in America, there were people dressed as the Joker, and I was just like, okay, so now not only like our art house films need to have the Joker, now also like world political events can only be taken seriously with the Joker.
The protests in Iraq had people doing the Joker thing. No, okay, but see, that's the weird thing about this movie. I mean, this is dangerously close to final thought material for me, but it's like, this movie feels so fake and contrived, and it struck a nerve for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about that with Heath Ledger already.
Yes, that's the hilarious thing about this movie, that it still blows me away. Like, just even the teaser for Folie à Deux of Joaquin standing in the rain like a little boy and just sobbing his eyes out. And it's like, how do we go from Heath Ledger to this? We went from the most omnipotent, supernatural force of nature that's hilarious and quippy and, you know, gets exactly what he wants most of the time, and has an answer for everything and is always 5 steps ahead, to the most pitiful character that's ever been put on screen. And the fans of the Joker were like, this is even better.
Yeah,
this is even cooler.
So when Bruce Wayne becomes Batman in this universe, the Joker will be a schizophrenic old man with a gun. And
just like Jack Nicholson and Cesar Romero.
Well, point given, but at least they had goons.
In many ways, we have to admit, Joaquin is already beating Mr. Damaged. I'm sorry, Mr. Damaged. Because
baby
first off, he's laughing. He's actually laughing.
You're laughing. You're laughing.
Okay,
That's
how do
true.
we feel about this whole laugh thing? So it wasn't until this watch that I figured out that the card that says I have a mental illness, which by the way is structured like a joke. Why would you write a card like that? Turn over. I have a mental illness. Here's my mental illness. I laugh.
Please return card.
Please return card. First off, one, if he thinks he has a mental illness where he laughs, why does he keep putting himself in situations where he tries to get people to laugh? If he knows it freaks people out so much, he needs to have a card. Two, I guess he doesn't have a mental illness. I guess that's just his laugh. By the end of the movie, that's what is revealed.
Well, yeah, I mean, the movie, I think, very clearly states like he has his like crazy, uncontrollable laugh, and then his like when he's pretending to laugh in normal situation, which is like the Rich Evans one.
There's a whole spectrum of laughs in there.
But yeah, I don't like. So many people were saying that the conditioned laugh thing was like a stroke of genius, and I'm like, I don't know. It kind of takes the piss away for the Joker a bit for me, that he's just like not in control. Like, we know the Joker's not in control somewhat, but this guy's not in control like at all.
It's also why I'm not a big fan of the glass. Like, I love Heath Ledger's Joker. Great Joker. I'm not a big fan of Joker having the mouth scarred in for the same reason. Like, he smiles because he wants to smile. He laughs because he wants to laugh because he's a freak. If he laughs uncontrollably, or if he can't control how his smile looks, then who is this guy?
Well, then by default, Jared Leto's performance should be the best Joker because he doesn't have
Yeah, but he doesn't have teeth.
Well, but also, like, Heath Ledger does smile and frown intentionally throughout this movie. This Joker I don't think he laughs like intentionally, like genuinely once in this movie, which is very un-Joker-like.
No, he laughs at Murray's jokes a couple of times before.
Yes, but he does it with the fake like. It's not like a real laugh.
He laughs at his own joke.
So yeah.
But it's not a joke. It's like
jokes. He definitely has the when he puts the blood smile on his mouth, and it's like the joy. It's that that's the closest we really get. It is again like it's a little blunt. Like when he has a notebook that is just the notebook from Seven, basically.
Oh my
and
God,
when he's in the comedy club, we're taking notes on the jokes, and he is laughing only when everyone else is not laughing. There's no overlap.
No subtlety at all. And I was like, that notebook, I'm like, when I first saw it, I was like, this is a great opportunity if it was like a notebook that seemed normal, but there was maybe something a little off about
It's
it.
just like, no, it's just like a series of red flags. Like there's cutout porn inside.
Yeah, like the handwriting is fucked. Like,
well, no, and then you also see him writing jokes in the handbook, and like not a single joke that the Joker writes down is funny or constructed like a joke. It feels like something that was half baked by Todd Phillips in a writer's room.
Just like
and
zero nuance.
And then also on top of that, he's like writing like the beginning of the joke, and then when he gets to the punchline, which is nothing, like when he's writing about the thing about mental illness, and he writes the punchline, he switches over from his right hand to his left hand, and then he's writing it purposely in serial killer font, and then puts a smiley face in the middle of it.
The scariest part of this is that Todd Phillips structures the movie in a sense that all of his jokes are not desperate cries for help or red flags. Everyone's just like, it's not funny. So does Todd Phillips think these jokes are like good faith, like my death will make more sense than my life? Does he think these are like good faith attempts at like stand-up bits?
I'm gonna come out and say it's something controversial. I don't think, based on this movie and the other work that I've seen from him, that Todd Phillips is the smartest guy in town, right? Like he.
What?
Like,
are you allowed to say that?
I
Wait,
know,
hold on, cut the mic. Paul,
yeah.
is he allowed to say that?
I just think from this movie, from what I saw, that Todd Phillips thinks that like everything that the Joker is doing is really fucked up and crazy, but does he have a point? You know, I feel like that's where
I agree.
That's the thesis statement, right?
But the only thing that he really comes away, like the only conclusion is that people are assholes and don't think about other people, and it's like the most basic shit ever.
But even his little scrawl in the notebook about, you know, people want you to act like you don't have a mental illness, like that's more interesting than anything that he actually includes in his act, which is kind of weird.
Is it? Is it interesting?
Is it though? I didn't think so.
I'm not saying it's interesting. I'm saying it's more interesting than I'm going to be a comedian. Ha 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 ha.
So we're going from like -5 to 0.
Yeah. That zero, our finest critics poured over those diary entries, right? Every review analyzed this, right? Because they were so desperate for what is going on here.
I was reading the response to it online, and apparently, while some therapists were critical of the movie, a lot of therapists were like, nailed it. Nailed it. That's what mental illness is like. Sometimes people are mean to people with mental illness, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, but I think there's like a YouTube video, you know, this GQ does the like, an architect analyzes architecture in movies. Or
a Joker analyzes
Yeah,
Joker.
there was like a Joker expert, I don't know.
A rental clown analyzes Joker.
A clown agency expert. No, it was like a psychiatrist, right? And when it gets to the Joker, she's just like, I have no idea what mental illness this is. It's like no research at all done until like he hallucinates, he's sad, he has the laugh thing, he's bipolar sometimes. Like it's just like
well, it's just like a nebulous thing to pin all of his actions on.
Yeah, and they get away with it by the psychiatrist saying, "You're already on 7 different pills, Arthur," and I'm like, what? Like, not even the craziest guy.
And the medications aren't even doing anything, and he's because that conversation comes from him wanting more medication. But then Paul pointed this out last night off mic. Once the funding is cut for his therapy sessions and he stops getting his medication, this leads to his low point, which is bombing at the comedy club.
But then later, when he stabs the guy, he's like, I feel so much better now that I'm off my med.
Yes.
You know? So
which, again, we go back to, like, the other movie that this movie's based on, apart from Rocky, is The King of Comedy.
Correct.
Right? And the thing that makes Rupert Pumpkin, again, so disturbing in that movie is that he's on the verge of, like, maybe he could be normal, but there's not something not quite right. And when he does his stand-up thing at the end, you're like, it's not the greatest, but it's not terrible either.
Like he's mediocre, yeah.
And there's, again, no subtlety. He just goes up on stage, he's terrible and creepy, and it's just like, oh, this movie's so bad, it's brilliant,
It kind of
honestly.
speaks to my issue with the therapist scene, which is basically this whole movie feels like if Todd Phillips ran into the Heath Ledger Joker and he believed everything he told him, and he's like, oh, that all happened to one guy. So, like, you get the therapist scene, which, again, as the movie goes on, you get the sense his mom tricked him into thinking he has different mental illnesses, but he very much does have, like, chemical imbalances in his head, which is why he needs 7.
Yes.
Like, it's mixing up a lot of factors here.
To this point, question for Troy. We know that the Joker has been a mother before, but has the Joker had a mother before?
That's an excellent question, Paul. I'm glad you asked. Joker's mom. So while the Joker has been a mom, and while there is a Teen Titan named Joker's daughter, neither of Joker's in Gotham, he kills his parents as like a teenager, but then that's not the real Joker. That's the Joker's twin brother.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of an Elvis situation.
Yeah. He turned his younger twin brother into the Joker. But no, the only time
I'm gonna fly to the Rock of Destiny, Mama. I'm the Joker.
Oh yes, it is an Elvis. Mama, I gotta hold my suits, my purple suits, Mama. No, there was a parody comic of Batman that mixed Batman with Crime and Punishment by R. Sikoriak, where he mixed the Joker with Raskolnikov's landlady. So you did have a grandma Joker.
Oh, wait, what? The Joker wasn't Raskolnikov. He was Raskolnikov's landlady that
Batman
Raskolnikov
was
kills?
Raskolnikov, and Robin
Oh my
is the
God.
prostitute who falls in love with Raskolnikov.
This is
Because
some
the point of
galaxy
the-
brain shit. Yeah.
Yes, and the Joker is his landlady who's just a dick, and Batman takes the axe to the landlady
Okay.
Joker's head.
Dude, never tell this to Todd Phillips because he'll make a movie about this 1,000%. Yeah, that is.
No one should
want him
ever
to.
know. Okay, well, he has a mom and she's not well.
Another cliche of the crazy loner
So
TikTok.
Yes.
again, I don't know what the issue with his mom is, but the actress has a rare honor.
Oh, yes.
Frances Conroy has never been in a piece of Batman media, but she has been in both Joker and the 2004 Catwoman movie.
You are a Catwoman.
Yeah, she's had a career of being in movies about Batman
Batman villains, but not Batman movies.
And again, like, even though just from everything, we can already very clearly tell that his mom is also not well, and he probably suffered some abuse as a child. There's an entire sequence later where this information needs to be revealed to us, and also have a flashback where they say it in the flashback, because even though this movie's rated R, it thinks that it's for stupid babies, which it is, you know. So
It
I
is.
guess,
Welcome
yeah.
to the TikTok generation. I'm kidding. It was mainly millennials who like this. Anyway.
But when he's with his mother, they bond over watching Murray. And I gotta say again, in the theater, this was another one of those. I've had, you know, in this IP era, I've had a few out of body experiences where I'm like, I just can't believe that what I'm watching is real. One of them was when Darth Maul's robot legs showed up in Solo. That was the year before this. And then when Robert De Niro says the word Gotham, I was like,
all right.
Here
So
we
full
are.
disclosure, me and a past guest of this podcast saw this movie with Paul. And afterwards, we were like, why was Paul so traumatized by Robert De Niro saying Gotham? Michael Caine talked about Gotham and the Joker for 3 hours. Sir Michael Caine.
Yeah, but Michael Caine is not Robert De Niro. It's like Daniel Day-Lewis saying Gotham.
Robert De Niro is arguably the best actor of all time.
He made Dirty Grandpa.
Yeah, but that's not IP.
What?
Well, let's also remember that Robert De Niro did wear a fake boob.
Well, but that's that movie's a masterpiece. Okay, but that's another point that I want to bring up. I remember when this movie, we were hearing all the buzz from the critics, and everyone was saying that Robert De Niro was amazing in this. And then I watched the movie, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Here's my old man take on this. I actually think Robert De Niro is good in this, and I think this and The Irishman represent his return to actually acting again. But here's my issue. Have you guys ever seen an episode of Johnny Carson?
He doesn't act like this.
Well, the thing is that he doesn't feel like Johnny Carson. He feels like a ripoff of Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson was this wiry Nebraska guy, and like they have an Ed McMahon guy. They have his band leader, who's still alive, by the way. I'm sorry I don't remember your name if you're listening to this podcast, Johnny Carson's band leader. But Robert De Niro is like playing him like he'll beat you up in like a back alley. And Johnny Carson was not that. And he's like, my kid, the dumb one. I don't like this dumb kid.
Yeah.
Well, that's his on-screen persona, because the one interesting thing he does in this movie is that they have a clear distinction between his on-air persona and his off-air persona, because when he comes in to see Arthur right before the show, he's giving him encouraging advice. He doesn't really remember his own set. He's a little bit more affable. And then when he gets on, it's almost like a light turns on. He's got to have a quip for almost everything.
I think it's an all right performance. Like, you get the sense that like he's a pro. Even I understand that this is a different era of late night TV, but like it is probably a little lower energy than it should be.
Yeah, and I think my thing with it is I actually agree with Troy here, because so what we see in this flashback, which is really funny to me, is not just that he singles Arthur out, but he's just like, you are my son now, Arthur, or whatever, And it's just like the persona that he should be giving on TV should be like more kindly Johnny Carson-ish, not more like grisly, like acid David Letterman,
Yeah. Well, he kind of feels like Jimmy Fallon on a bad day is what he actually
No, he's more, well, Jimmy Fallon on a bad day is Jimmy Kimmel, but,
Yeah. And obviously James Corden is the Joker.
But it is funny that even Arthur's fantasy, it's still like kind of awkward and kind of like he's surly. But this dream sequence where he places himself in the show is the very, very subtle hint that some of the sequences in this film may not be what you think they are. They might be fantasies, and you'll never be able to guess which ones they are.
But it's also the most fucking bullshit excuse to if you argue with a Joker head. I mean, I'm a Joker head, of course, but if you ever argue with another type of Joker head who is just like, this movie's a masterpiece, is perfect, and you're like, the last 30 minutes of this movie make no sense, they'll go like, well, but was it a fantasy? And I'm like, that's such a fucking cop out.
Oh my God. And Todd Phillips would be the first person to say that.
Yes, even though all the trailers we've seen of Joker 2 pretty much confirm that everything we saw in Joker 1 happened, except if Joker 2 is also all a fantasy. I don't fucking know.
Well, actually, it's funny. In the original script for Joker, the original scene, the last 30 minutes was going to be a fantasy, and then you were going to wake up and it was going to be Daniel Craig in the chair from Spectre as the needle was going through his head. And he was like, I thought I was the Joker.
That would have made it a 10 out of 10, yeah. Talking about forced screenplay shit, this is his fellow clown man, he's just like, here's a gun. And then like he gets angry at him because he lies about like he tried to like buy the gun from him. But it's just like,
oh my God.
But you kept the gun and brought it to a hospital. What are you angry about?
Well,
it's like,
again, that's the Todd Phillips secret, right? Is this movie, if you're thinking with your brain off, this movie's sympathetic to the Joker. if you have a brain, you're like, the Joker's the whiniest loser of all time, and he deserves all of this.
He's the most passive motherfucker ever.
He doesn't
But the
do
movie's
anything.
Clearly not presenting it this way at all. It's trying to make you cry for the Joker.
Yeah, it's just going like, wow, the world is cruel. The world is cruel. The world is wicked.
There's like, we made the Joker, and I'm just like, what did I do that made this man bring a gun to a children's hospital? Like, what?
He meets Zazie Beetz and her kid, right? Yeah.
And she pretends to blow her brains out, which is, of course, what every Travis Bickle loner wants to see in our dream woman.
In a beautiful woman.
It's just like, just in case you weren't sure of its cinematic influences.
Every character in this movie is a different 1976 movie. Joker is Rocky. She is Taxi Driver. Murray is Network. Hello.
Yeah.
TV.
And Bruce Wayne is Bound for Glory. There we go, kids. Look that one up. That's your parent.
So he's got his gun, and he's doing another scene from Taxi Driver where he's watching TV with his gun.
And it's interesting, okay, because the scene he's watching here is from the masterpiece, the 1937 film Slap That Bass. Now, if you haven't watched Shall We Dance, by the way, Slap That Bass, get a little rhythm. Shall We Dance, the third best Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movie. Slap That Bass is a great number written by George and Ira Gershwin. Fred Astaire, the greatest dancer of all time. Watch that. Don't watch Joker. What's the matter with you? Go watch Shall We Dance.
Let's get into the function of this scene.
Wait. All right, I do have analysis of this. So in Taxi Driver, I wrote a paper on this in college. In Taxi Driver, part of what implies that Travis Bickle is racist is he's watching, I want to say, Soul Train or a Soul Train-like show, and he's fixated on a black couple dancing, and he points the gun at them, which is implying he's racist. So Slap That Bass is unique in the Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers cycle because it's the only time in the cycle that black performers were allowed to sing and dance along with Fred Astaire as equals. So he's pointing the gun at a black performer.
Here's the thing about the scene is that Fred Astaire's on screen when he points the gun initially, and then it cuts to the black performers.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is Todd Phillips thinks the Joker is Fred Astaire.
I guess.
And that's why the next one's going to be a musical, because the Joker, as we all know, is a great dancer. And I was trying to think of where this comes from, and I think it's just the Jack Nicholson Joker, right? Who danced, right?
Yeah.
Like, none of the other Jokers dance.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it all goes back to Party Man.
It all goes back to Party Man. But it is, again, just the fundamental concept of like, we're going to do the classic scene for Taxi Driver, but it's actually not about what that scene's about.
Yeah.
So he's going to kind of, he kind of points the gun, but he kind of just like, I'm not really pointing at them. I'm pointing over here. You know?
Now I'm imagining like this Joker going like whoop whoop with the cellos and then farting.
Yeah,
he would do that. Is the thing.
Yeah, but that's
like,
what this Joker is.
And no.
For all we know, Joaquin did do that on set and it didn't make the cut or whatever. But this is one of the scenes where I think he is genuinely like funny and like almost sort of like weirdly charming, where he's doing his fake, wow, Arthur, you're a really good dancer, you know? Like,
Hey, Arthur, you're a really good dancer. No, who's not? Him.
Did you know that Joaquin Phoenix wanted to gain weight for this movie? Because he's like, realistically, Arthur Fleck would be fat because he would be sad. And Todd Phillips was like, shut the hell up, you're losing weight. And he's like, no!
If I was getting paid $1 million to be a clown, I would also be like, can I eat whatever I want?
I would also ask that. Yes.
But also, like, yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of goodwill formed with this scene, I guess. But then to me, it's pretty much gone, pun intended, with the very next scene where he brings the gun into children's hospital.
That's the funniest scene in the movie.
And the kids are like chuckling.
That's a great little bit of kid improv. But then the next scene, I'm just like, what, am I supposed to feel sad for him? Like, what's going on here?
Well,
like,
the character of his boss is already just insane.
What I think is the funniest thing about his boss is that they live in 1981 New York. And Taxi Driver, everyone is like, oh yeah, it's dangerous out here. You should probably have a gun. But in Gotham City in 1981, this guy's like, What do you mean you were mugged? What do you mean you carry a gun for personal protection? I don't buy any of this, you dummy.
That's bullshit. Bullshit. What kind of clown carries a fucking gun?
I think then it's like the very inception of the Joker, which is the subway scene, which is like one of the most embarrassing fucking.
It's so well. This is where the movie starts getting super 2010s. It already was pretty 2010s, but this gets so 2010s because it's like a girl on the subway with Wall Street bros being like, "Hey, girls don't need to read books," and he's
this
like,
is when the movie like fully commits to. It's like, okay, we're not going like Joker is going to be Paul Kersey in Death Wish. He is not going to be Travis Bickle, where he's a bigot. He is going after just nebulous assholes, and these are rich guys, which will start a movement. But the way these guys are introduced, it's just like the most nonsensical thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, yes, the classic Wall Street brokers that love Stephen Sondheim
Yeah,
music.
that ride the subway at like 2 a.m. after watching a Sondheim musical and they're eating French fries.
they saw a little night music and they're like, "Send in the club."
Yeah, I mean, clearly this movie is arguing that the most dangerous, pop culture material is a little night music, right?
Yes, it is, because it implies that it's okay for your son to marry your wife and you to marry your mistress and for your mistress's boyfriend to stay married to his wife. That's a great musical and a great Bergman film.
And again, the subway cart is like ridiculously graffitied. The lights aren't working. I thought that fucking Wallace Shawn from My Dinner with Andre was gonna show up.
I remember My Dinner with Andre, where I learned about, what's going on over there? Are they singing a little
good
night
Lord,
music?
oh my.
Oh no. Yeah, if he shoots him, I gotta say, as far as, I mean, the bar is pretty low, but at least compared to something like the BVS Ultimate Cut, whoever's in charge of the CG blood splatter at DC got a little better. It looks
They
all
put
right.
a little more effort in this movie than the rush to meet his deadline BVS.
I mean, I like how it's like he's out of frame and you just see it's kind of surprising, but
Okay, it's no surprise at this point, listeners, that this movie is politically confused. But this scene in particular is interesting because it's trying to recreate the Bernie Getz shooting from 1980s New York, where this guy, Bernie Getz, went taxi driver and he basically hung around a subway until he got mugged by
Children.
by children of color, and then he shot him. Did they die? I forget if they even...
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, they did die, and there was this whole trial, and everyone cheered him as a hero. So this movie's recreating that, except it's Wall Street bros. So again, we've completely flipped like what this real life event was to be something it wasn't.
That's the whole theme of this movie is taking things that meant something and then removing all context and repurposing it for your Joker movie.
Send in the clown.
And nothing of Rocky is still surviving in this movie.
And then we have that incredible moment that we parodied in our trailer where he's like confused and he like briefly points the gun at his
He does this multiple times in the movie.
Because he's sad.
I'm willing to bet that this was not scripted, that this is Joaquin Phoenix's reaction to doing business with the gun is putting it up to his head. But the thing is that he does this, besides the times where he intentionally is trying to practice his on-air suicide, he does this, I think, 2 other times in the movie where he picks up the gun and the first thought he has to put it up to his temple.
I think you basically see him do it. I mean, or at least they use the takes where he does it. Pretty much every time where he has shot someone or is like thinking about shooting someone, and then he turns it on himself, almost as if I'm thinking about it cynically, it's almost kind of like they don't want him to seem too scary in a way where it's like, oh, he's gonna go on a murdering spree. Well, no. He hates himself so much.
This whole movie is like that Shane Dawson? That comedian who got canceled for being on SNL. That gif where he like points the gun in his mouth and then his eyes go wide and he points the gun at everyone else. That's basically this movie for like 2 hours.
Yeah, and then we finally do our other thing that we parodied, the famous bathroom dance, which also
Famous. totally improvised.
Can we talk about the behind the scenes?
Yes, I was gonna say
of this scene.
I cannot stand this entire behind the scenes where they keep bragging about stuff that makes no sense.
Yeah, so for context, behind the scenes, they say that in the script, he was supposed to go to the bathroom so that he could hide the gun in a grate. And then on set, they're just like, Joaquin was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why would he go to a bathroom to hide the gun here?
And also, he needs the gun later.
And he needs the gun later, so he needs to dance. So he's like, oh, so I should do a dance, so it's like my transformation into the Joker. And then they're like, oh, and then we just got a bunch of cameras and we filmed it like that. And that was the kind of improv that we're doing.
But at the same time, Joaquin claims that he worked with a choreographer to develop this dance.
Yes.
So
Get your story straight, Joaquin Phoenix.
Todd Phillips prefers it to be multiple choice.
Whether or not it was made up as as like a bit of bonus thing to go like, oh, this is how into it we all were, where everything was improv and we came up with genius stuff. It's like both stories are pretty damning.
After this is when the screenplay starts getting really fucking contrived, because it's like, okay, the Joker needs goons, he needs followers. So as soon as this comes out in the newspapers somehow know that it was a clown. I don't fucking know how. But
Eyewitnesses. Wallace Shawn.
Yeah. I saw a clown after my dinner with Andre, and it made me reconsider life.
It was an interesting night.
Oh my God, what happened? Well, Andre had gone to this collective in Europe. Oh, you mean?
Yeah.
he went to clown college.
Well, I decided to have the roast duck at dinner.
Let me tell you about a man named Philippe.
Then the newspapers are like, we believe it was a 90-year-old clown called Philippe.
I saw him. He was a French clown. But yes, this is when things get really out there. He starts a movement.
He starts a movement for killing these Wall Street guys, which I don't think that doesn't fucking happen.
Not in the 80s.
Not in any time.
No, the 80s, everyone voted for Reagan.
On top of this, Thomas Wayne, the reason why the clown thing gets adopted is because there was a report that it was a clown that shot these guys, even though there were no eyewitnesses besides, I guess, the lady. And Thomas Wayne calls people less fortunate than him clowns because somehow that gets tied into the eat the rich thing.
Thomas Wayne is like running for mayor, and he's like, I think it's fitting that they were shot by a clown because poor people who don't pull themselves up by their bootstraps are clowns.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why would you say that?
They make Thomas Wayne Donald Trump, which is another thing where you're like, okay, whatever. But
Alec Baldwin was supposed to play him originally. Trump also had the Central Park 5 where he was getting involved in like...
Yes, okay, but this is my point. So like the protest that started for the Central Park 5 was in support of the Central Park 5 because they didn't do it, right?
Yes.
And it's like people, when shit like this happen, people rally up in riots and masses, whatever, for, the victim of the crime, not the fucking perpetrator. This is like such a weird thing that is just like, this guy killed, even if they're Wall Street guys, people wouldn't go like, oh, he's our god now,
Right,
like,
right. I mean, all we've seen so far is that like things are bad. We don't really see like, wow, people hate the banks. Like that's not even been introduced as a concept in the movie.
And we all know what happens when, people don't blame the rich. They blame on even poorer people or less fortunate people for their problem.
Yeah.
It is interesting, again, because once again, we're seeing, which our good friend Christopher Nolan kind of started in his movies, the idea that in Gotham, evil comes from the bottom up. But then this movie also has the rich people being crappy, so I guess everyone just sucks. I don't know. Remember when The Dark Knight Rises, when Nolan tried to film Occupy Wall Street to use as footage of Bane's army, but he got turned down? This whole movie feels like the logical extension of that idea, where the Joker literally inspires Occupy Wall Street. And you're like, when is this? What's going on?
It's
They
insane.
want to make the movies feel relevant to our times. Big quotes.
Yeah.
But Arthur gets he gets a high from killing. He's immediately making out with Zazie Beetz. Totally real. He does the I forgot to punch out.
I forgot to punch out.
which is
Good gag.
mildly funny. Yeah, it's an all right gag. And then the most like maybe the most teenage coded moment is when he walks out of the clown agency and there's a sign that says "Don't forget to smile," and he scratches out "Forget to."
That to me, I was like, Joker, you need to calm down. This is too much.
Your Riz is too bad. Your bitch is too crazy. They'll kill you, Joker.
The crime spree has started.
That is his worst crime yet. And then his social worker is like, "There's no funding. You got no meds. Bye." And this devastates him again, I guess.
He's angry at his job because they fired him, but they let him keep all his clown stuff, which big mistake. And then
And his gun.
and his gun. They didn't confiscate the gun. The children didn't get to keep the gun.
But he needs to return that sign.
Look, you can kill the Wall Street guys. Just give the sign back. You're holding the city ransom.
What I want to think is that after the death and the riot and the carnage and one of the clowns being shanked with a pair of scissors, I want to think that music store owner is still calling Raphael going like, "Where's the money from my sign?"
So this is when we start seeing like him going on weird little dates with Zazie Beetz, which is
in the most fake montage of all time.
Which you're thinking like, okay, if this is really happening, this is awful and poorly written. If this is a fantasy, which most likely it is, I'm interested to see where they go with this. And the answer is nothing.
I will say this, that this guy is acting so weird, even in the montage sequences, that when he does show up at her apartment, I totally bought for a couple seconds that she had just gotten the ick. Like, just she had it up to here.
But just like
ew, you're wet. You're getting my couch wet.
Imagine if in The King of Comedy, like near the end, we had a montage of him like in a restaurant, like talking to Jerry Lewis, but they like do a cut and he's like talking to no one. It would be embarrassing, right? Like, and this is exactly what this movie does.
But yes, they try to establish so subtly and believably that this comedy club just has like a camera running all the time.
Oh yeah, we have viral videos in 1981.
No, that's the weirdest part is they do viral videos in 1981, which again, why set it in the 80s if you only want to engage with the world as seen in like 2019?
And here's another thing that really bothers me, because they go like, Arthur Fleck's apartment, it's so dumpy.
No, I was thinking like it's huge because you need those IMAX cameras in there, you know, they're not.
He has a VCR in this apartment in 1981. No one had a VCR. Like, that was a luxury item in 1981. Those were $700 in 1981 money. That's like a couple grand, and he can't make the rent.
So basically, yeah, he does the comedy bit, as we know, and it later goes viral. But this is around when he just magically manages to open a letter by his mother, because she keeps talking about Thomas Wayne. She's been talking about him, I guess, for his entire life, but he doesn't know why until now.
Yeah, he was never curious about
which is that she thinks that Thomas Wayne is Arthur's father, and then he becomes Pennywise.
Well, that'd be crazy. Can you think of another movie that would possibly make the main hero and the main villain brothers?
Yeah, that would suck.
Oh, yeah, that would suck ass.
Everyone was doing it.
Get out of here, Christoph Waltz.
But again, it's one of these things where it's just like, you're the son. Actually, you're not the son. Or you might be, or you might not. And again, so many critics saw it and they were like, brilliant how it plays with you. And I'm like,
yeah,
what the fuck does this add to anything? Like,
well,
what?
No, it is funny because, again, that's the tension in this movie that, again, we've talked about it all the time, and it's almost impressive we haven't come up with it, where on one hand, this is trying to be a Martin Scorsese movie, but on the other hand, it still has that mandate from DC Comics and Warner Brothers that it is a Batman origin story.
So far, nothing in the movie has happened, so they need to have some sort of plot or subplot happen on top of this. And so they're just like, all right, we've had like 45 minutes of Joaquin Phoenix walking upstairs. Now we need to have him discover a mystery. And that's going to take up the next 20 minutes of the movie.
So he goes to Wayne Manor. And here's the thing. We all love the Joker. Great guy. When he went to Wayne Manor, Paul and Landon can confirm this. We were watching that in that theater when that kid was playing in the playground. I heard people around us go, Batman, it's Batman. Look, Batman.
There are videos of people clapping when he says Bruce, and I'm like, what? Like,
and we get introduced to the like most alpha aggro Alfred we've ever seen in our life.
Unhinged Alfred. Listen to me, you copper. I'm gonna blow your fucking lights out.
I do want to point out a fun thing. Todd Phillips has claimed that the only intentional Batman reference in this movie is that Kid Bruce Wayne slides down a pole, like in the 66 show.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess. No, but I was gonna say, you're watching this and you're just like, okay, Batman's a child. This guy's like 45. How's this gonna work?
How's this age gap relationship between the Joker
I'm not
and
down with the
Batman?
age gap, man. And then you hear Todd Phillips say shit, and real fans of this movie say shit like, oh, but like, you can't even think about it as a Joker movie. Just think about it like as another character. And it's like, okay, if I do that, it's just like crappy Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
I mean, Rocky, right?
Yeah.
B, I'm like, it's very fucking hard for me to disassociate the whole lore when the movie is fucking ramming in like Bruce Wayne and Alfred and Thomas Wayne,
the Joker,
and the Joker.
And it doesn't really amount to much, but we do get this hilarious scene. It is amazing how much Arthur gets away with between this scene and the scene where he steals the files, where there is a gate that is stopping him from doing things, and he can still just kind of reach through and like fuck with people and do whatever he wants.
That is very Joker-ish.
Yes, he's like, he can slip his little hands through the bars,
like
He
Robin
sticks
in the
his
Lego Batman movie.
in little Bruce's mouth to make him smile. He does magic. It's Pennywise. He's like, come into my sewer, little boy.
Joker's mom is like, Arthur, go steal these files. I need small child hands.
I need small childlike hands.
I need to keep you thin so that your small child hands.
Childlike hands can steal this from Fastos.
That's why she malnourished him. Yeah.
Well, no, but that's again the double-edged sword of this movie. Is on one hand they're like, "Oh, poor Joker," but on the other hand, he's touching kids. Like he's being creepy with kids. Like get him away.
Putting his fingers in their mouth. In Taxi Driver and King Comedy, you're not just like, oh, they have a point, you know. But this movie, it is like feel bad for him. He's right about society, but also he's awful. And I'm just like, this doesn't feel like intentionally because it just feels like you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you know, like.
Yeah, so he dresses up as a bellboy to go into a modern art museum screening of Modern Times, one of the greatest movies of all time about society and class and the lower classes and the upper classes.
And it's told by a clown. And all the rich people are going, ha, 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 ha.
I do want to point out, in addition to the Batman Joker lore here, I think this is the first time, this is a brand new thing. Comic books did not really do this until I think this movie. The idea of Thomas Wayne running for mayor, the idea that Bruce Wayne's family is part of the political class, that's very unique to this vision of the Joker hating society, I think. But then the Batman does it too, where they're also involved politically. The idea that the Waynes have to now be politically like part of society corruption.
That's also a thing, is like when he goes to confront Thomas Wayne in the bathroom, and Thomas Wayne is basically Donald Trump and being the biggest asshole ever, and he punches him in the face. And I'm just thinking like...
Written for Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, and exactly. No, but I'm also thinking like, these people, extreme billionaires like Donald Trump, especially like Donald Trump, they are scared of people like Arthur. They wouldn't touch him, let alone punch. Like, he would just run from that bathroom. Like, this makes no sense.
That's again the weird thing, because Todd Phillips admires Thomas Wayne and Alfred kind of weirdly, in Murray. Like, he gives them this weird sort of tough integrity to them that if it was really anti-rich, you normally wouldn't give it to them.
It's so
confusing. Like, what is this movie saying?
He's going up to Olympus and meeting with the gods, and they're punching him in the face. I don't know. I'm like,
who
I don't know.
protests a Charlie Chaplin screening? Even people who go up in restaurants and yell at Ted Cruz, when they see Ted Cruz is at the New Bev watching like a Charlie Chaplin afternoon, they're like, guys, Give him his privacy.
Well, it is weird that, this like repertory screening is like, obviously this is a haven for the elite of our society.
I think what they're implying here is that the Waynes only take Bruce out to see movies. Like, Bruce Wayne only gets to leave the house if he's going to a movie.
Yes. And the movies are Blowout and Zorro the Gay Blade.
Blade and Excalibur. What a triple feature to show your kid.
Because Batman's gay, right? I mean, that's the thing about Batman.
Actually, question for the room. Is this the straightest Joker we've ever had? There's no implication at any point in this movie that he doesn't like anyone but women, and he really likes women.
Yeah, I don't think there's no reach arounds in this movie.
No reach arounds from this Joker. This is heterosexual incel Joker.
Oh, speaking of Joker's sexuality, when he gets the call from the Murray Franklin show, this is the viewing where I noticed that he's like touching his dick.
Yeah, he's masturbating in the next room. Yes, I noticed that too.
He gets the file. I mean, I think there are movies that probably do this well. I can't think of any right now where it does the thing where the main character has repressed a massive part of their own life.
Oh, yeah. That's
and
confusing.
it is a revelation to themselves and to us at the same time.
But it's not his memory.
Well, he's remembering things that didn't happen to him, number one. You don't see the thing that is actually his memory, which is him as a little boy chained to a radiator or whatever it's supposed to be. In any case, like this is hard to pull off, and I don't know if there are that many cases where it's done well, but I don't know about this one.
It doesn't make sense at face value that he doesn't remember his own abuse because it went till he was like 5. It doesn't make sense that apparently his abuse was written up in the newspapers and no one at the Murray Franklin show goes, "Oh, wasn't that Radiator Kid from like 30 years ago?"
That is absolutely maybe the most baffling part of this whole movie is there's this guy who is clearly crazy, clearly unwell, clearly violent. He goes in fucking scary clown makeup to the show, and they're just like, all right, you're up in 5.
No background check.
I like it. We're going to go with it.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
Well, if you say so, kid, Joker it is. It's good.
Yeah, our other Lord and Savior, Doug Walker, had a really good, rare bit about this where there's just like, the guy's like, when I come out, can you call me Joker? And they should have just gone like, no. It's like, why are you?
He wouldn't have done it if they hadn't called him Joker.
Another thing about the file that maybe this is all on purpose. Let's give Todd Phillips a little benefit of the doubt here. Technically, we only see any of the evidence that his mom is lying in the file, right? Because later on we see the photo that says, "I love your smile, TW." Yeah, and that's the only evidence outside of the file that maybe his mom was telling the truth about having an affair with Thomas Wayne. And not adopting.
But maybe it's a hallucination.
Everything in this movie is so obvious and in your face that I don't fucking believe you when you say that this is supposed to be ambiguous. I just don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Speaking of ambiguous, he's devastated and he just wanders into Zazie Beetz' apartment, which is unlocked, and just touches everything. He just touches all the clothes. And then she walks in and he tells her, "I had a bad day."
Oh, yeah, or one of 2 Killing Joke references.
Also, like, it's already terrifying, but like, when he does the gun thing, she covers her mouth like this. And I'm just like, why is that more terrifying than anything else that you've seen so far from
Let's
this?
not skip over the fact that we don't know if he killed Zazie Beetz or not, and Todd Phillips has actually gone on the record going, "No, why would you think that?"
Well, if you look in the trailer, when he's walking down the hallway, I think there was supposed to be a part where he pulls out flowers, and he's supposed to go to her apartment before he gets in the elevator and like give her a bouquet of flowers.
Yeah, it leaves people thinking that like she's dead,
or next on his list or something. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. But I think the most apparent thing to me is like, yeah, it's like, well, if he had killed her, then that would be, completely unprovoked, and that would make him unsympathetic. Like no one would follow him for the rest of the movie.
Which he wasn't supposed to kill her. Like, if he gives her the flowers, that's at least like a payoff of him. Like, now that he's transformed into Joker, he's
confident. He's like Travis Bickle with Sybil Shepherd at the end of Rocky.
Cops are investigating him, and there's a pretty good gag where he runs into a glass door. I like that. Classic.
Which again, is he stupid? Like, is that what it's saying?
Yeah, I think that's my thing. Is like the Joker. All the funny stuff that the Joker does is not intentional. So fuck that.
Yeah, he kills his mom, which is questionable because we've established that, at least according to the file, if you believe what the movie's telling you, instead of actually being Thomas Wayne's son, she had a bunch of abusive men in her life who abused her and him. And so he resents her for letting other people abuse both of them. And that's why he kills her.
Because he's crazy.
I think he considers part of the abuse to be him taking care of her. Like, I will say this.
Yeah,
to Paul's
it's like
point.
him freeing himself. That is true.
Yeah. She calls him happy, but he also points out again and again that she told him he wasn't funny, which is kind of a dick move to tell your kid he's happy, but he's not funny.
Well, I actually, for this particular scene, I wrote down what Todd Phillips said in that behind the scene we all love. He says, and I quote, "This is when Joker is really born, because this whole character is a super ego and an ego and an id. And you could say that Arthur is the super ego repressing the id, and the Joker is full id." What the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like, what is he talking about?
I thought, this is just so bold.
I see a little bit of Paul's point about maybe intentionally making Joker a provocation, and that I do feel in the scenes with his mom and Zazie Beetz, they are intentionally trying to make him incel Joker, and he's definitely supposed to be some kind of misogynist. But then, what does that have to do with Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like the incel god wouldn't be demanding like free healthcare, you know?
Yeah,
like it's
like, what is
it's weird. It's like a weird convoluted thing.
It's a stew, but these are all topical things, and it's pushing buttons. I mean, that's the whole point. That's the guiding principle, right? Is
to make you uncomfortable.
To be honest, if I became the victim of a viral video in 1981,
you'd go werewolf and wild.
Yeah, like I would have gone werewolf, because how do you become the victim of a viral video in 1981?
But it's true. This is like him unburdening himself and fully becoming Joker, because then
he is unburdened by what has been.
By what has been, and looking forward to what will be, or whatever she says. But yeah, now we're seeing him put on the makeup, and he's so crazy that he puts the makeup in his tongue.
Also, he gets a surprise visit from his two coworkers, the asshole who sold him the gun that dresses up like Emmett Kelly, and the shorter one, the shorter British man who's very nice to him. Also, if this is supposed to be an unprovoked visit, it's funny that Arthur's first reaction is putting a pair of scissors in his back pocket.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
The one dignified scene of a dwarf in Joker media.
Dignified?
Compared to The Killing Joke?
Dignified.
Have you read The Killing Joke? It's a step up.
The one funny joke in this movie is a little person joke that he is not tall enough.
Oh yeah, that's such a weird moment.
Yeah, after he murders the Emmett Kelly coworker for being mean to him.
I don't know what's going on with his performance in the scene, because one moment he's heartbreaking because he's so scared when he's stabbing the guy, and then he's just like, oh. Like, he just seems unfazed the next second. And then the door gag. Like, it's a very strange scene.
Very weird, yes. I mean, basically, this guy has like 3 beats in the movie, and they're all about that he's not as tall as other people.
I will say Joaquin in this scene, confrontation with the two of them, this is the most Joker-y. Like, this, he actually kind of feels like he's straight playing like a normal Joker in this.
Yeah.
Well, this is like basically the only time that because he kind of like chuckles when he can't reach the lock on the door. It's basically the only time that he actually like registers comedy that's not the inverse of everyone else.
Yeah, right. And he's also in control of this moment.
Even though it's kind of convoluted, it works for me because it's extreme violence followed by something funny. Kind of like how a Joker movie should operate.
Yeah, it feels like a scene out of a Joker movie.
Yeah.
And he's cunning. He does the scissors thing. He puts planning into what he's doing, which is the whole thing with this Joker is, even though he's supposed to turn into a criminal mastermind, you're like, where's the master? Where's the mind?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess I forgot about it at the beginning, but it's worth mentioning that the description of this film that is on HBO Max This is service that is owned by the studio that made it. So this is the official description of this film. A failed comedian begins a slow descent into madness as he transforms into a criminal mastermind. Now, Todd Phillips, in an interview a few weeks ago, Arthur is clearly not a criminal mastermind.
He's not even the Joker.
He's not even the Joker. Yeah, he's just like, yeah, don't think about it as the Joker. He's not the Joker. Oh, by the way, in this next movie, he's falling in love with Harley Quinn and Harvey Dent is trying to... Yeah, like fuck off.
No, it's funny because I've heard apparently Joaquin Phoenix has been consistent. He's like, no, I'm the Joker.
Yeah.
I'm not...
Stop calling a Joker if he's not the Joker.
So then he rocks out.
Yes.
We need to get to the Rocky steps of this movie. You know, we're gonna fly now. Instead of gonna fly now, we got...
Rock and roll part.
Rock and roll
two.
anthem by convicted pedophile Gary. Why does this keep happening?
Is there a worse song choice that he could have picked for this moment?
Okay, I think this scene kind of works, guys.
This is
I'm gonna be completely
horrible.
honest.
This is awful.
This scene is iconic for a reason.
I'm willing to split hairs with you. I think the idea of putting the song in the movie is ill-conceived.
Like the Joker.
But
it's crazy, like the Joker.
But it's almost so removed from what is happening and so just try-hardy and bad that it comes around to being memorable. It's like Jared Leto's
Jake,
performance.
What does that mean? It fails at everything it does that it comes around to working.
No, but there's a level of failure that comes around to being iconic.
All this is in the shadow of this is the entire marketing of the movie. This was the poster. This is what the trailer built up to, is this swooning, triumphant presentation of this character, and this is the image. So then you see it in the movie, and they put the silliest song that you can put on it.
Yeah.
But then you hard cut to the swooning cellos.
Yes!
So you've got the silly version and the borderline insane, melodrama version just next to each other.
And then an awkward cut to the policeman looking at him. It's awful. This whole scene is awful.
I love it. That's great. I laughed so much today when I saw the two policemen.
And we have the complete inverse of the movie that this is most heavily aping off of, Rocky.
Right.
We have the entire movie.
Stairs, yes.
I'm going to turn into Todd Phillips for a second. The entire time, when we see the stairs, he's slowly crawling up the stairs as if he's trying to crawl up into being a morally upright citizen. Now he is triumphantly dancing down the stairs. Unlike Rocky, who ascended the stairs as if he's ascending to the godlike status of being able to fight Apollo Creed, he's now descending into madness.
Okay, but Jake, I'm going to be real with you. What you're saying is more interesting than Rocky just walking upstairs to be good at fighting.
It looked really cool in the trailer when it was set to that cover of Smile by Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
Why did they put that song here? I hate it.
Wait, why does this movie have like 3 theme songs? We have That's Life, we have Smile, we have Rock and Roll. Why does this movie have like...
Send in the Clowns.
Because it's schizophrenic like the Joker.
We're getting up to the subway car where they made all the extras piss.
Wait, what?
You didn't hear about this?
No.
So they crammed all these extras and Joker masks into the subway car to film the part where the Joker's running away from the cops. Oh, he also got hit by a car. That's crazy. But he ran into the subway car, and as you might imagine, listeners, on film sets, they work you like a dog for 18 hours a day.
They didn't let them go to the bathroom?
No, they didn't. They made them sit in the car, and people had to piss off the subway cars into the tracks. SAG had to send a representative down to observe the rest of the shoot to make sure they weren't allowing the clown extras to just piss themselves.
He runs away from the cops, but he makes it to the talk show, the big scene.
But we do need to bring up that Shia Wingham and his partner get beaten up because Shia Wingham accidentally shoots one of the guys, which leads into one of the most famous lines of the movie. You're laughing.
Yeah.
2 cops are in the hospital and you're laughing.
2 policemen are in critical condition. You're laughing. You're laughing.
Well, that's the thing. Murray knows he's bringing him on to make fun of him. Like, Murray has gone on national television and said he's not funny, but when he meets him, he's like, all right, we're both entertainers here. We're both professionals. Joker, good bit.
Your video went so viral, your tape, and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
We have a really strong reaction to it. What does that mean in 1981? A grandma wrote a letter going,
wow, that guy just wouldn't stop laughing during his set, I guess.
what a crazy guy. I loved it.
He's a wild and crazy guy.
Johnny Carson did not play clips in his show, except if he was promoting someone's move anyway.
Also, is a weird adaptation of the scene in The Dark Knight Returns.
Yes, it's from The Dark Knight Returns where he goes on David Letterman.
Yeah, they have the Doctor with character, and I think when we saw a trailer, we all thought like, oh, this will be like when he has like already his goons, and he's gonna send his goons to kill the audience or whatever. But no, he just has a gun.
And he's already prepared because in the scenes beforehand, he's rehearsing his talk show and he's going to do a knock-knock joke. And the punchline is he shoots himself.
Yeah.
But at this point,
he's gone full Joker.
He's gone full Joker. And he's like, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to make an edgy joke about a drunk driver killing a child.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's the police, ma'am. Your son's been hit by a drunk driver. He's dead.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is as he's doing his little dance, the famous dance. We all love the dance, don't we, folks? I love Robert De Niro's delivery of, look, we're all heartbroken about the violence that's going on in the city and those two cops. We're sad about it, but this is how he wanted to come out, and I think we all deserve a laugh. It's like me on 9/11, dressed up as Osama bin Laden.
We all need a good laugh. No, exactly. It's like,
yeah, right.
Now here with you, the scariest, most uncomfortable man on earth that's dressed as bin Laden. This is another scene where I still hear even people that didn't love the movie just like how great this scene is, and I think this scene is fucking ass. Like I
go back and forth on it.
This is the one defense I have about this scene. I think the scene is successful at establishing tension because we all know it is going to end with Robert De Niro getting shot.
Yeah, I don't care.
And I do remember seeing it in the Chinese theater.
I was tense because of that guy in front of us.
Well, that guy was intense for going like, yeah, but everyone knew what was going to happen. The air is thick with, oh God, when is someone going to die? And I think it is successful in that respect. As what the scene is trying to say, that's a different story because it becomes a thing about how you can't make jokes about dark things anymore.
Comedy is subjective. All of you, the system that knows so much, you decide what's right or wrong the same way that you decide what's funny or not.
Well, it's fascinating because this is the crux of the movie, and it's the most evidence, it's the most clues we get of why was this movie made? What is this movie about? Why did Todd Phillips want to make it? He gets into basically, Joker says, I'm not trying to be political. I'm just trying to make people laugh. But then the problem is that society won't let him tell the jokes that he wants to tell, right?
Right.
It's about cancel culture, yeah.
Right. Which is probably why the Venice Film Festival gave this movie the Golden Lion.
He says that the system decides what's right and wrong, what's funny and what's not.
I'm also not saying that Warner Brothers gave them a suitcase full of money. I am not saying that. So strike that off the record, cut this part, okay.
That might be possible. But here's the thing that's really clear about this scene that we kind of have touched upon, but I think it really needs to be hit home. The real argument that the Joker has any sympathy or any responsibility or any appeal in this version is that he is an 8-year-old boy. And this is basically an 8-year-old boy going on TV going, I killed them because they couldn't carry a tune. And it's just so immature.
Yes. He's supposed to be full Joker here.
Well, we already have the transformation. He's dancing down the stairs. We had the scene with him and the sisters killing the guy. At this point, there should be more of a transformation into what he is. And the only thing that changes in the scene is
he has makeup.
Well, he decides not to kill himself on camera. Right here, he's vocalizing his grievances, going no one understands my humor, when really the movie isn't about that. It's all about everybody is mean to him.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks about the poor, I guess.
Well, yeah, he says nobody's civil anymore. Nobody thinks about what it's like to be the other guy, because obviously he's so empathetic.
Yeah, right. Unlike Murray, you're terrible, Murray. But fun fact, so Joaquin Phoenix was getting worked up doing this, and I believe the scene is, you leave someone with mental illness, again, such blunt dialogue, chef's kiss. You leave someone with mental illness alone in a system where he'll go werewolf, but the line was in a system, but Joaquin Phoenix got so worked up, he's like, You leave someone with mental illness alone in a society.
What do you get
I don't think so.
when you cross
I think
a
we're
mentally
done
ill
with this
loner
show.
with
That's
a
it.
society that abandons him and treats him like
Call
trash?
the police.
And that is when we all
Because
clap.
this is really what it is. This movie is based off the Dark Knight Joker meme.
The society meme became reality.
Yeah.
But it's like so serious, which makes it funny.
But
and
those
that's
memes were stupid.
Yeah, exactly. That's my whole thing with the scene is like any tension that it's set up to me completely, absolutely fucking deflated by the dialogue and sorry, Joaquinix, the performance. Cause I'm just like, this is supposed to be his full Joker moment. And he's saying shit like, you're just like the rest of them. And I'm like, this sucks.
Well, like, it's so on the nose and it's not funny or he's not in really control of the situation.
I was cringing in the wrong way during this entire scene the first time I saw it.
Because there's still a threat of violence that looms over the scene, and I think
Yes.
that is still maintained throughout.
I agree with Jake. I think Robert De Niro does a great job counterpointing him and being like, again, that weird, tough, but like I think De Niro genuinely does a good job in the scene. Also, someone I noticed this time, whenever they cut to the creepy profile of Joaquin Phoenix, you see Mark Maron out of focus.
I also hate all the stock sound effects of the audience going, "Aw, ha ha ha." You know, I hate that Robert De Niro dies in his Robert De Niro face like this.
I like the little trombone wah wah.
I like that. I like when he kisses Dr. Ruth. But yeah, I think this scene is ass.
It's the thesis of the film. What do you get when you have a mentally ill loner and then society treats him like trash? You get what you fucking deserve. And
If you even be me on the sidewalk, you walk right over me. Ah, yes, such Joker vibes.
Yeah, right.
Man up, yeah.
I'll tell you what you get. The police. Get what you fucking deserve.
I thought, this is just so bold.
Remember in The Killing Joke where his goal was to make you cry about something bad that happened to him?
Basically, it's just a sequence of
Network.
he is fully vindicated and fully validated, and the people riot.
So now the clowns are running rampant throughout the street. They're taking Thomas and Martha Wayne, taking their 10-year-old child out of the blowout Zorro the Gay Blade Excalibur triple feature during a riot.
Everyone knows that there's going to be riots in the city tonight.
Yeah.
Like, even the Joker's former coworkers know about this.
Yes.
So Thomas Wayne is just like, but I really want to see Zorro the Gay Blade with my family.
And also, I am a billionaire, but no need for a limousine to drive right up to the theater. We can go through this shady, dirty alleyway.
Martha, wear your nice jewelry. We're going to see George Hamilton in Zorro the Gay Blade.
Martha, I've been waiting for the new Brian De Palma for fucking weeks. Don't ruin this for me.
Don't ruin this for me, Martha. It's the only way I can bring the boy. But yeah, so an ambulance, they Dark Knight, they do the Mr. Reeves thing where they hit a cop car with an ambulance. Somehow Arthur Fleck is still alive, and as he's passed out, Joe Chill, wearing the mask, shoots Thomas and Martha Wayne, and blood goes all over Bruce Wayne's face.
And he just looks like dead in the ice. No reaction.
The guy says, you get what you fucking deserve.
Get what you fucking deserve.
Intentionally, the Joker, by proxy, has once again killed Batman's parents.
And also, like, Bruce Wayne's parents, they're like 90 years old. Like, there's something weird going on. It's a pet peeve of mine. It's not even a pet peeve. I think it's like a serious problem when you see a movie and like what's on the script, they maybe didn't have the means to like put it on screen. And this is, to me, a clear case of that, where this is supposed to be like a giant city-wide riot, according to what we've been told. And then it's like they have like a couple dozen extras, you know? Like,
yeah, and then maybe some CGI populations.
Yeah, but this is his epic moment where the poor finally venerate Joker. And I think the idea, because I always wondered about this, is like, why is his makeup so different while his suit is kind of accurate? I think the idea was, if this movie didn't get a sequel anyway, I think the idea was his makeup is supposed to smear into the Heath Ledger makeup, because he has the blood red lips and the blue becomes like dark black around the eyes.
I also interpret it that way, but to me, just the whole sequence is so weird of like, oh, you killed Johnny Carson, now you're our god person, and I'm just like,
Yeah!
You know, if someone just shot fucking Jimmy Fallon in the face during the 2020 protests, no one would be like, this is the guy. You know,
Well,
like,
we don't really get any indication of Murray being part of the elite. You know, we get a whole bunch of Thomas Wayne being part of the elite.
Well, I will say this. Murray expresses sympathy for the cops and for the 3 Wall Street
yeah,
boys
but we
who were
don't get a
killed.
reaction of the city.
You get the TV thing.
I'm sure that Jimmy Fallon's not anti-cop, but if he got shot in the face, I don't think people would rejoice and make that person like their savior. You know what I mean?
Well, they were already rioting. Wasn't the idea that the riots were stopped by the cops? Then it escalated with Murray. I think the big thing with Murray is that Joker takes responsibility for being the leader of the movement, and killing Murray is his way of doing that.
Well, he says he killed the Wall Street guys, and they're like, oh my God, that was you. And then Murray's like, well, that was bad. And Joker's like, well, you're part of them too. Bam.
Yes.
I really don't think it's convincing.
There you go. And then he ends up in Arkham.
And again, this is where I will disagree with Paul, not entirely. I do think the werewolf is the thesis of the story the movie is telling, but I do think, again, Martin Scorsese didn't want to direct it because of this. At the end of the movie, what's the final thing you're really left with in Arkham State Hospital is that he has created Batman. That's what's important. This searing character study, this sociological thing, what's really important, kids, Batman's on his way.
Exactly.
It's implying that in order to get revenge at everyone who is mean at him, he has somehow created the person who will be the meanest to him. Like, just punch him in the face repeatedly.
Right.
For the rest of his life. So, fun fact, in an earlier version of the draft, they weren't going to kill the Waynes this traditionally. They were going to have the mob run into Wayne Manor, drag Thomas and Martha out and have them executed while Bruce Wayne hid in, like, the Batcave passage and Alfred would have to find him. And then the Joker was going to be arrested at their funeral. So, I'll admit I like that they went more with the classic version. It's more... It gets the point across cleaner, I think, if that's what you're trying to do. I don't really need to see Thomas and Martha Wayne get guillotined. That's not...
Yeah, the Joker's having a conversation with the psychiatrist, and he starts singing That's Life, and then we see him out in the hallway.
With bloody footprints.
With bloody footprints, implying that he killed the psychiatrist, and then he's running around the hospital.
I do kind of like
orderlies.
that it ends with like a cartoon, like running around gag. That's fun.
He's a Joker running. He's found his passion, running.
He's funny.
Yeah, and then we get the RKO font from Citizen Kane and Shall We Dance for the end.
Yeah.
It's a real movie, Jake. It's a real movie.
That's why it was nominated for Best Picture, while The Dark Knight was not.
Oh, God, don't say that.
Yep, this was nominated for 11 Oscars and won 2, I believe.
Yep.
Best Actor for Joaquin Phoenix, making the Joker only the third fictional character to have 2 different actors win the Oscar
And
for
to
playing
talk
the same
about
role.
cow's milk at the Oscars. Yeah, I think that there were 2 moments of like mass hysteria of the 2020s that very clearly like define Obama years and Trump years, which is like, 1, the Joker wins, the Golden Lion gets nominated for 11 Oscars, yada, yada, yada. 2, the Obama years was Hamilton winning the fucking Pulitzer Prize, where I'm like, you may like Hamilton, but come on. You know, like...
Now let's get into the final thoughts. Jen, Mabuki, what do you think?
This Joker, it's not my favorite, I would say. So Joaquin Phoenix, as we've talked about, one of the greatest working actors right now, one of the best of his generation for sure. He's done other Joker-y roles much, much better in the past. This performance is very fucking weird. He is just like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, and you end up with this like weird stitched like Frankenstein performance done in the editing, which doesn't really work, and you can't really like track where he's at mentally except for just he's crazy. I mean, I don't even think it's too controversial to say that this isn't just a bad Joker, but that he's not the Joker, because the director of this movie has said this is not the Joker in the Joker movie. You know, it's like, this is not a criminal mastermind. He's not funny. He's not all that interesting or mysterious, really. He's just a fucking, like, weirdo with a gun. I don't really like his makeup or his suit either. So I guess I'll give him a 5 out of 10 because there are glimmers of like Joaquin's performance where you're like, oh, that was impressive. It's not consistent, but you're doing. I liked how you climbed into that refrigerator. I don't know what it means, but I liked it. And that is kind of also how I feel about this entire movie. You've heard me shit on it basically nonstop for 3 hours. And to anyone that's listening, you might think, man, this guy really hates this movie. And I don't like it. But I wouldn't say it's terrible because it's not boring for me. You know, it's one of those movies that, like, you know, it's kind of well crafted. It looks nice, even though the cinematography, like everything in this movie, is too fucking obvious and on the nose. But it looks okay. It has some impressive stuff in it. And most of all, it's a movie that, like, almost every scene, it keeps me going like, huh? What? Huh? Like, I'm just, like, baffled by the thought process of a lot of, like, screenplay-wise, performance-wise, directing-wise, you know? So I don't hate it, and I appreciate the effort of going for it, I guess. But yeah, that being said, this movie doesn't fucking work. It's like everything we've been saying, right? Too fucking obvious, on the nose, begging you every single second to take this seriously. Yeah, the themes are super muddled. You can't track the character in this character study. Just filled with fucking problems and weird decisions in every scene. So I will give it a 5 out of 10, except everything I just said, and this is my Joker's trick, is bullshit, because this is the best fucking movie I've ever seen. It's a 10 out of 10, and the Joker's a 10 out of 10, baby. Society.
What a trick.
Paul?
Well, obviously this Joker, I mean, it's everything that we ever wanted. This is why we're here. You know, this is what it's all about. But also, look, Joaquin is a great actor. As we discussed, he's somebody that totally gives himself over to a project when he does get to that point where he's able to trust the process. And so he's in the hands of his director. And what we end up here is with this performance that feels kind of like diffuse and not focused. So it's hard to get a beat on this guy. He basically has like all the angst of like a teenager, but none of the circumstance of a teenager. So it doesn't quite add up. And maybe in a different kind of movie that could have made some sense, but I struggle to follow it. I'm going to give him, I do think he's still very watchable. So I don't know, I'll give him like a 6 out of 10. The film, I mean, they set out to make the taxi driver of the 21st century, but what this ends up being is this is the Joker story of the Killing Joke turned up to 11, even more blunt, without the flip side, without the answer.
And with 10 IQ points docked off from the writing.
Well, yeah. There's no antidote, right? It says you get what you fucking deserve. It's like, how could you not be the Joker when all these bad things happen to you, right? I mean, it just kind of cuts off that ending part where it's like, wait, but
maybe it's just you.
You know, you ruined Bruce's life and he becomes not quite as crazy, presumably. I don't know. I mean, at the ending note, he seems to be kind of chuckling like, haha, you don't get the joke that I'm so twisted that I'm going to make him twisted just like me. But anybody who knows anything knows that that's not going to happen, right? Because, you know, in the Killing Joke stories, even in the darkest moments, he's kind of disproven. Anyway, it's basically just trying to hit you with the force of a dump truck. You know, it has the trappings of art. All the craft categories are pretty well done. And when I saw it the first time, I gave it some points back in 2019 because it just has this kind of lurid power to it. This just pulpy impact that, you know, I think did kind of fascinate a lot of people, but obviously that wears off on rewatches pretty quickly. So I think this is maybe like a 4 out of 10 for me.
Ditto on both your points, Paul and Jan. Yeah, Joaquin's a great actor, but yeah, it's just the directing is not really there to focus on anything, so it just becomes a hodgepodge of weird shit Joaquin Phoenix felt like doing on the day of filming. And the makeup is, I don't really get why they changed it, just something to be different or to differentiate this Joker from the Joker that appears on Pajamas that executive was concerned about. I'm going to give this Joker, you know, I'll give it a 6 out of 10, maybe. Yeah. The movie, Paul, you hit the point on the head about one of the things that is successful about this movie, because like you, when I first saw it, it's more so engaging because of just the thought that oh my God, they got away with making a movie like this, a movie that is provocative, that is going to be shown on all these screens, that is poised to make $1 billion. And you're more so marveling at that fact. And then when you're watching it again and you're trying to parse through what are the ideas behind this movie, all you're left with is just like an empty shell, because there is nothing behind this movie. However, I do think that Todd Phillips has some success with certain surface level elements of this movie. I think the tension in the Murray scene is finely crafted besides the dialogue and what is being said, but the overall feeling of what you're supposed to have is successfully executed. Some visuals in this movie, like I brought up the stairs a bunch of times in this movie. I think those images are well crafted and well thought out. However, the only way that this movie really works for me, and because those images are really good, I think it works well in trailer form. And I think that the first trailer of this movie with the cover of Smile,
much better than the movie,
gets what this movie is trying to get at in 2 minutes. There's so much nothing in this movie that you can pretty much put anything that you want into it, which is probably the Joker's greatest trick. I mean, Heath Ledger got away with it in 2008. This movie got away with it in 2019. So 5 out of 10.
Well, yeah, well, this Joker, I like him. He's a good one. Joaquin Phoenix, it's interesting because, again, you're kind of trying to figure out, you got the little Smallville problem here, where you're like, he's trying to play an earlier version of the character, so you have to like look at his performance on his own merits, while at the same time trying to figure out what are you actually getting out of this iteration of the Joker. It's very frustrating, because it is a lot of surface level ticks that Joaquin Phoenix is doing. They don't really vibe together or coalesce. I'll be honest, I still don't really get the point of the dancing. This time in particular, the dancing really struck me as like, what?
Yeah, no, me neither.
Doing?
Well, you'll love the next movie, which is...
I know, I'm excited for it to be a musical. That's the thing, like Fred Astaire, like you could try to type that into some kind of expression, but what he's doing doesn't quite make sense. Maybe they'll elaborate on the next movie. But I think what Joaquin Phoenix does do a good job of is I think he does a great job of showing the building confidence. Now, it's a little obvious because he starts from a position of, I'm an 8-year-old boy in wee shorts. Who are you? When you get mad, you're getting mad at this guy. But I like his growing build of confidence in the Joker role. I think you can find him like take all his quirks and somehow turn it into something that seems like it could be the Joker. I know they say he's not a criminal mastermind, and maybe they completely shat the bed in the sequel. We'll find out. But I do think you do get this weird sense of this guy becoming more confident in his role, which is like a new side to the Joker we haven't seen a lot. And it's kind of a mirror to Batman that works well. So I think it's pretty good. I also do think that when you do such radical reinterpretations of a character, you do have to ask yourself, hey, even if it's good, how does it stack up to other interpretations of the character? And does it capture the raw power of that character? And having a Joker that's not doing large scale crimes and like hating Batman, it feels like there's thematic juice left on the table. Just making him Travis Bickle or Bernie Getz maybe isn't as interesting as a clown prince of crime who constantly makes dark moral puzzles. So when I say he's not comics accurate in that respect, that's because I think the comics version has maybe a little more mature entertainment to offer than this version. But I think Joaquin did a really good job. I don't begrudge him the win. And he is watchable. He is watchable. And he finds little moments like with the gun at the children's hospital or the door or in the scene with his friends in his apartment where he does tease out an interesting quality. So I'm going to give him like an 8 out of 10. The movie, oh boy, this one's tough. Because normally my opinion of movies does not change a lot on rewatches. But this is a movie that I think gets a lot of power of where you see it and when. Obviously, the complaint against it has always been Baby's first Taxi Driver, Baby's first King of Comedy. And if you haven't seen those movies, this could hit you differently. I think this movie could hit you differently if you saw it in a theater. We didn't have the most vocal audience when me, Paul, and Landon saw it, but they were plugged in. Like, you could feel the audience vibing with the movie, and that's such a great experience. That's why we go to the movies. So if I felt it was a little surface level or a little shallow, it's fine, because, you know, when you're hanging out with friends in a kiddie pool, that you don't mind if you don't go into the deep end, because you're hanging out with other people. When you're watching a movie by yourself, you kind of just notice you're standing in something up to your thighs, and you're like, I'm not completely submerged here. I can't really kick or anything. And that's kind of this movie. As the guys have touched upon before, it's very surface level. It tries to do a political message because it feels it has to. It tries to do a message about mental illness and what drives people into violent fits because it feels it has to. It tries to do the origin of Batman because it feels it has to. And does any of it really click as it's supposed to? No, because it kind of feels AI generated. It feels like the most surface level version of all these things. However, hot take, movies are not built to be deep. Movies are best when they're focused on characters and character relationships. When movies start thinking about ideas, the holes start popping up and they kind of all fall to pieces. So how is this as a piece of entertainment focused on characters? Well, I would say, you know, it's still moderately compelling. A lot of scenes work for me. All the Murray scenes work for me. Everyone's really bringing it. Todd Phillips, this film is probably the best directed thing he's ever done. I forget, I haven't seen Old School in a while, but the atmosphere is nice. It was just so strange when this movie came out that it was Hollywood's first time making a movie with atmosphere and like scenes that somewhat treated you as an adult. And like, no, is it an all-time classic? No. Is it good? No. Is it more compelling or watchable than, say, oh God, you guys are going to kill me for this, something like Batman Returns, where you're getting a lot of ideas, but there's no really compelling emotional arc, and there's no like, it's just zigzagging everywhere.
There's no Joker. I mean, it's objectively not good.
Where's my Joker?
Yeah.
This is my take on cinema, and it's the great dilemma of how do you rate a movie? Do you rate a movie because it had so much brand new ideas? Or do you rate a movie because it plugged you into an emotional experience?
I think you gotta rate it on execution.
What is execution? What I'm saying for me, execution of a movie is plugging me into the emotional experience. If after an emotional experience, you're like, that emotional experience was a little unearned. It's like comedy. If you laugh, do you analyze why you laugh? Or do you just go, oh, I laughed, I have to recognize that? And I don't know. Rating wise, I'm going to say right now, tentatively, this is the third time I've seen this movie. It goes down a little bit in my estimation every time I watch it. It does not hold up to repeat viewings. But, you know, I had it at 7 out of 10. Is it going to go down to 6 out of 10? I don't know. So I guess if we somehow do a podcast final ranking, you can put me down as a 6.5 out of 10. I just have to think about it a little more. God, wait, shit. How am I going to do? That's like a 3.25.
All right.
Okay, all right. Math.
So we'll have all that to think about and more.
And Troy, normally I would give you shit about going like, well, the movies don't need to mean anything. But this is still the same podcast where we defended Die Another Day based on how we felt. So
I was gonna say I don't even have a good rebuttal
king.
for that.
Spit your truth, king. And
Joker is better executed than Die Another Day, and Rocky is better than Die Another Day, but not by much.
All right, let's kill this guy.
Anyway, so next week it's a different kind of Joker movie because this is arguably the least Joker we've ever seen.
We went
in a
from most
movie.
Joker to least Joker.
Wait, which one are we doing?
We're doing the Batman.
Oh my God, we're actually doing it.
We're gonna take a look at a certain squeaky voice auteur filmmaker of our day. So, goodbye, folks.
Bye, everyone. Remember, this is a 10 out of 10 society, baby.
I'm going werewolf. Rawr.
And remember, that's...
I thought, this is just so bold.